Welcome, one and all, to another
Welcome.
session of Humpday Q&A. Oh dear.
Also known as lunchtime here.
Yeah, I raced down some food. We had a meeting just before this, so it all kind of snowballed a bit. So thank you. Yeah, long time no see, Craig. Long time no see. It's like we were here just a minute ago. How about that? Thank you for everyone for joining, including those people that are from the Dev Camp, because I know some of these people's names from the Flutter Dev Camp, which we just did.
Nice.
The new London GDG Flutter London Dev Camp just opened up, and we've just selected all the mentors and participants. So it's now
How do I buy a
closed.
franchise?
Soon we'll have another one, I'm sure, for those that missed out on this selection. I guess we'll dive straight in. Are you ready to jump in, Scott?
Absolutely.
All right, let's go.
Alrighty, be nice, be respectful, be constructive. Come on. Don't post anything that's adult, rude, offensive, or otherwise against common sense. Don't advertise, promote yourself. We all know you need a job. The big one that people actually do is they keep repeating their questions. That's what spam means here. They keep repeating the question, and what you don't realize a lot of times is that causes your question to go to the back of the line. If you ask it, every time a question is asked, it goes to the bottom, even if it was already in the list. So we get everybody's questions marked. We have a little system here with a star, and it collects them. Don't keep asking it, or you're going to end up being at the bottom of the list for the rest of the day. So harassment of any kind, of course, incels, bigotry, all that nonsense. If you get kicked out of here, we share your name with everybody else all over the place, and they kick you out of their stuff too. So, don't be surprised if you look up and can't get into Discord anymore. And lastly, hey, have a good time. This is
definitely have a good time, indeed. Welcome again. And for those that don't know, let's get it up again. There we go. My name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter Community Lead and CTO at Dev Angels London. And you can follow me on Twitter at Dev Angels London. Scott?
I am Scott Stahl, also community lead for Flutter, and along with a lot of other people. I do want to mention we are not alone in this. Also organizer GDG Cleveland, and I write code under Good Dogs Apps, and we also rescue older pit bulls.
We also have a Randall. Randall, welcome to the stage.
Hey, hi, greetings for our first show in January, our first show in 2024. That's what I was going to say. So we have only one show, and no, wait, that's not right at all.
I was going to say this is our fourth show.
This is
how tired show this week. The only show of the week.
I got a 7-hour sleep last night, and let me tell you, I don't know if it's rubbing off the wrong way or what. Anyway, I'm Randall Schwartz. I am a Dart and Flutter Google developer expert, which means I spend many hours a week, sometimes hours a day, answering all your questions on things like Discord and Reddit and Stack Overflow and Slack. And I like answering questions here too. But for this show, my particular role is that I am the question magician, which means that I am watching the chat. I'm watching for you to put Q: in front of your question. That will let me know that particular chat is for us, not just random chat amongst yourselves. So that's pretty good. I'll flag that. Sorry, for the people to answer. The people will answer.
And not to mention, you have a great YouTube channel as well.
I do. I promote that usually for this show, but I can go ahead and just bring that up. Yes, I do have a YouTube channel.
Pop that in the chat. Why not? So just to be clear, if you try and post links in the chat, we will not receive those messages. No. Not just the link, we won't receive the message at all because it's filtered out as spam. So if you do want to post code, post it in a gist on GitHub, and then put the hash of that gist in the chat, and then we can then open that up and have a look. That's the best way to share code.
Almost every show, someone gets down towards the end and says, "Why didn't you answer my question?" And almost always it was because they put a URL in with their questions. Here, look, what's wrong with my code? Well, first off, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go off to some random website and evaluate your code. That's not proper for the format.
We're here to talk about Flutter, not do code reviews for, we charge money for that.
Yeah. Good money.
We do have
one other.
We also.
I'm sorry. There's one other very important point that we always do try to make, and I want to make it early. The number of people on this camera who work for Google is 0. Okay, we do not work for Google. We are not on the Flutter team. We do not. Our opinions are our opinions, and they're usually, Google doesn't like our opinions. So not only do we not represent Google, they yell at us every once in a while for saying something stupid. No, I'm kidding. But we want to make sure of that, because people always seem to think we work for Google and that we're on the team, and we fight against that impression as hard as we can. It was 2018 was the best one, Simon. There were 8 of us standing at DroidCon, all wearing Flutter shirts, and nobody there worked for Google.
Those days. We also want to say that for the format of this show, which isn't
we get an echo off your microphone, Scott, off of Randall, coming through on your microphone. Are you on a headset?
Really? It's strange. I'm using my normal one. I can switch over.
Okay.
It might not be the mic. If you got a headset, that'd be great. Anyway,
okay.
So
I'm just going to say, but the format of the show is we're taking questions for the first hour or so, and we will cut people off probably in about an hour when we have enough questions to know that we're going to go at least another hour and a half with questions, it seems. And then Simon up there we go, is going to be doing some live coding. So we're also looking for suggestions about what to live code today, although I think Simon probably already has something in mind.
I have a couple of previous suggestions and a couple of things, so we can always try a few things out.
Any better?
So get your questions in early. In early. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Background suppression was off.
Yeah. Let us know if it's a code suggestion, just pop that in there, and that can be highlighted, and we'll save it for later.
And what is people saying I don't have? They didn't know I had a channel. I think I talk about my YouTube channel pretty much every week now, so pay attention. But there's 2
tweets I actually wanted to call out that actually came up just before the show. So let's do this little segment here to let you get your questions in, by the way, and then we'll jump into the questions shortly.
Sure.
Let me just see if I can share this up on the stream here.
No Danielle today. She's busy.
Right. Yes, no Danielle today. Maybe we'll be joined by some others later. We'll see. Let's see. Yeah. So I saw this come through from Lucas earlier, and I was like, "Oh, this is brilliant." So the master channel has got the new macro stuff in it. So static metaprogramming sort of side of things, I guess. I know this is the first time I'm seeing it. So you can use the macro class prefix, and then based on that you can use that class as a annotation on other classes, and that will run this function when it's applied. When you run it, I have no idea. It's all new to me, so I figured we could try this out. Since I'm master, we can check it out and give it a go, see what happens. That might be fun. Another one that came up, he says, there it is. Andrea posted about Flutterflow, and I thought this is kind of an interesting one because I know, Randall, you've tried out Flutterflow, but apparently they had a big seed funding round, and he goes through some pros and cons, his experience. What is it all about? And yet the cons that he mentions are the kind of normal things you see from code generation. So first of all, very good documentation tutorials, quickly builds prototypes, Firebase integration, great, drag and drop UI. And obviously they've got the funding, they want to make this better, right? But as you can see here, the problems they've got to solve are quite big problems. One is generated code virtually unmaintainable, spaghetti godlike state classes. We've seen this before. This is the nature of generated code a lot of the time, right? Like it falls into this realm of it's not made by a human, therefore it's never going to be, really, really nice, right? Flutterflow decides everything on your behalf, dependency state management, routing. Yeah. So
provider and not Riverpod too.
Yeah,
very sad.
You
Very
can't
sad.
really build production ready apps. I think he means by this is the fact that obviously with all these issues and other things, it's not production ready. So you're going to have to take it out of Flutterflow to make it production ready. The history features bare bones version control system, not suitable for larger projects. So, I mean, to me, I've seen it before, like lots of other tooling, like Postman, a bunch of other things that integrate well into version control systems like Git, so that you can actually version it. So I don't see any reason why they couldn't like look at using Git, right, as their version control. Poor debugging experience. You have to debug main.dart with the Chrome dev tools. So that's a shame. And I guess that's because the development environment is, web-based. So you could, I guess you could, if you've got the pro package where you can export the code, run it locally, debug it, and then go back. But it just takes you completely out of the point and click interface, right? So they definitely need an in-house debug solution. What else have we got here? Once you download and edit your code in your IDE, you can't sync it back to Flutterflow. And this is the one I've mentioned before that I've seen with all these tools. You're generating code, you're making changes to it. You can't get that back into because these are your own custom changes. All of the website builders and all these kind of things, they give you like a little spot, like, oh, put some code in the header, put some code here, put some code there, but they're limiting you, and that's by purpose, right? So I think maybe they can do something like that. Lets you more hooks. I think the case is more custom hooks. Say, oh, before this widget is generated, wrap this widget with a custom widget, things like that. You know, that maybe you can then apply some sort of behavior. Anyway, existing templates are incomplete, existing project templates are incomplete, not up to date, and other random errors and bugs. So it's still a work in progress. But yeah, it'll get you there for a lot of simple apps. Will get you 90% there. But once you get to the last 10%, you roll the dice on 3 possible outcomes. Few it works, rewrite the whole app. Good luck fixing bugs and maintaining it. So yeah, he goes into a lot more.
Perfect example of the 20/80 rule, where you know this thing does for 20% of your effort, you're going to get 80% of the way there, but the other 80% takes another 80%.
I think I'd like to see. It's nice to say that, but then that would be fine if the code wasn't spaghetti code, or if it was like really nice stuff at the end of it, because otherwise you're not really there, because you're going to have to make it production ready, which takes you maybe really only 60%, because you've got to spend another portion of time just getting it where you need to be to take it to the next level. You've never heard of the 80? Oh my God, really?
What?
I think 20/80, 80/20. It's the same thing.
Oh well, it's the same rule. Just when you're, I'm translating it for people on the UK because they have everything backwards.
Shush. You mean we have it the right way around?
I had to get a dad joke in early in the show just so I could get that out of the way. I will say, personal experience as a professional Flutter developer, I've had either 2 or 3 clients that have started with Flutterflow, and in both cases, or I guess all 3 cases, it was okay as like a quick proof of concept prototype to get something out the door, but the code was absolutely unusable to come forward with. So basically, we rewrote everything from scratch in the straight Flutter.
The nice thing about it, though, I mean, they're good people and they have the funding.
Yeah.
So they're and they take suggestions. So I'm hoping this is going to be the start of something really cool. Maybe about 2 years, where creating a tool like this is the same as creating an app. Well, it is creating an app, but iteration, iterations, refactoring, iteration.
How every product is made.
What happens?
I said how every app is made.
Unless you're Simon, in which case you just kind of go very slowly and you create the final app in one go. But
very slowly.
Well, okay, very quickly, and you still won't refactor. Again, if you ever do a code review with Simon, the only thing he doesn't change is the imports, and even then, sometimes
they get changed. Right.
I will say that on the recent releases.
Thing, though.
Oh,
go ahead.
On the recent releases, they have been adding AI, so that's been interesting. So you could basically start describing a task, and it would start doing some of the layout and whatever for you, for at least the common
Flutter
tasks.
Flow.
So,
Yeah.
Flutter Flow. So that's kind of nice for at least some starting thing.
Do you remember? I remember it was a couple of years ago now. Someone doing a AI thing where you can like draw out your UI on like paper and feed it into it, and then it would build you the UI, which I thought was like rather snazzy.
Yeah.
But again, here's the thing: I've seen this output of like Figma and stuff, and you look at it and go, "That's just not like." Unless you build the Figma exactly in like their own column system and do it all right, then you'll get kind of a good output. But we still have to rewrite it. Like it, I think I did something. I think I remember exporting a simple layout, and it came out to like. I think it was about 3,000 lines of like UI code. And when I actually looked at it, I did it in, I think it was like 100. so you know, that it's just
given an image, you need extra annotation to know whether some box relationship is important or unimportant. And of that, what part of that is important? Is it the relative widths? Is it the absolute space between them? What part of this picture is important? And the great thing about working directly in Flutter is I can specify those importances straight up. It's the first thing I'm typing is, oh, this is going to be a column with an expanded and stuff. So I can specify those relationships as I am creating it. And I can do it programmatically in such a way that it's very clear to the layout engine. When I get it right, it's very clear to the layout engine what I'm trying to do here. So very nice that way.
All right. Shall we get on with some? Oh, actually, before I do that, I just want to let people know there is the Global Games Challenge happening right now. I'm not sure what the end date is for the sign up, but go to that website, flutter.dev/global-gamers, and you can sign up to the challenge. There's I think it's $100,000 worth of prizes available right now. So go sign up now. That's cool. flutter.dev/global-gamers. Right. Okay. Let's should we jump straight into the first question?
Sure.
I'm sure Scott will be back in a minute.
Actually, I do have one other quick little point here. Randall, you did say before that you had to get a gag joke in.
I did already. Like
yeah. Okay. Well, you did, but the thing is I to quote Princess Bride, I do not think that word means what you think it means, because a gag joke is not supposed to be a joke that makes you gag.
Dad joke.
A dad joke. Okay. I like my version.
Moving on.
And it wasn't really even a dad joke, because it wasn't a bad pun. It was just a misuse of interpreting the terms. Okay. Yes. We can continue. We shall continue. We have 6 questions to you. Yes.
How useful are hooks, and should we use them in bigger projects? I don't know about using Flutter hooks by themselves, but using them with Riverpod is really good.
They're not actually all that relative to Riverpod. What hooks do is abstract away the 4 phases of a stateful widget: declaration, initialization, something to do during each build, and dispose, and vertically slice those, so that you can have abstractions that are based on not having to plop things in 4 separate places in your app. And that's really, really nice. It's only for local state. It's not for shared state. So it's the opposite of Riverpod. Riverpod is only about shared state and not about local state. So yeah, hooks are interesting. They're a pretty good mimic of from React hooks, and Remy has told us this many times. And so actually I read the React documents and finally understood some of the things that weren't said in the Flutter documentation for that. But I've used them from time to time. I don't reach for them at first. Sometimes use effect is really nice. Sometimes use state is really nice when I don't want to go to all the trouble of creating a stateful widget. But more often than not, I'm doing consumer stateful widget if I want to combine something that's kind of like local state plus global state. So a consumer stateful widget is just fine for that. I can use ref to get to all my Riverpod stuff, and I can also have access to local state.
So for those that don't know, I've just brought up the page here. This is the kind of example, right? So you might declare an animation controller, initialize in the initialization state, dispose of it here, flip it out, or adjust the parameters when the did update widget happens. And basically that can all be now done with use animation controller. And this method looks at the current context, works out which widget, which hook widget in, and attaches these various things to the element. So they're persisted just like state does. So it's kind of like it gets rid of some of the boilerplate and makes, helps you clean up your app a little bit. But it is just, it still does the same thing.
It's just an abstraction across those 4 layers. And there are times when you're constantly touching the same 2 or 3 layers with a particular task. There's a bunch of Flutter hooks core. There's another wonderful package that has about 25, 30 more hooks that are all compatible with the core package. I forget the name of it now, but I was
going to say, I personally don't prefer hooks, mainly just around the fact that the way that the hooks work is not visible in the code. It works under the hood. I would prefer it if it was a bit more sort of declarative in its nature, just so that you can see what it does. It doesn't have, to me, it doesn't have to match exactly React hooks. Like that's not, as long as it produces the same result, right? But yeah, the fact that it uses the current uses a static context to essentially attach the static element, I can't remember, to kind of attach things. It means that also this won't work in a multi-threaded build situation. We don't have this currently, but I can see that's not too far away. So this would have to be refactored anyway when you get to that situation where you might have different parts of the tree being built at the same time, things like that. Anyway.
I just linked the package that I was talking about. Flutter Use is the fourth party, I guess, by the time you get all the way out past Remy. Of that is a bunch more of really, really cool hooks. So like the accelerometer, the phases of the moon, things like that. So you can make those as hooks.
All right. What's next?
Yep.
Interessante. Alrighty. Matt.
Hey, Matt.
Flutter app should already work on Apple Vision Pro. They won't even work on Apple Watch right now. Thank you, Apple. Do we think more spatial computing support will be added in the future?
Speculation is fun. I mean, I think on the nature of this. First of all, I got a DK2. I was very much. I've had very much been into VR from the get-go. I've experienced VR firsthand in a lot of situations. The problem, and I actually did at that time do some experimentation with like coding in VR, right? Having a virtual desktop environment, having this kind of like spatial computing. It works fine, but it's the same problem that generally VR has, which is that your eyes are focusing on the same point. You have to make sure you're getting the right spacing and everything else with your VR. VR has to be perfect, right? So for the most part, playing a session of a game for like 15 minutes or something like that, that's in VR, doesn't matter what the heck, it could be the crappiest headset in the world. Most people, unless it's really laggy, most people will be fine with it, right? But I think if you're trying to do long-term programming sessions in it, it's not workable. Hopefully, Apple Pro Vision, maybe Vision Pro makes that a change. But there's also this nature of I did some work even on desktop with like a 3D desktop environment. This is a long time ago, and that kind of idea of having planes around you that you can like move stuff to. Maybe that's where the future is.
I do have a bit of experience with that because my thought was I was traveling quite a bit, and it would be really nice to have a consistent environment where you can sit down and you have your desk all the time set up the same way, and all I would have to do is take my laptop and my headset for VR, and I would have that. A couple things I found out. One, don't bother unless you invest in a really good headset that has great resolution. The least expensive one that I know of right now is for Windows. It's the Hewlett-Packard G2 Reverb G2. It's got great resolution. It does work. I have a Samsung Odyssey that there's too much of a screen door effect to be able to really work in it. The G2 I was able to work in for maybe 90 minutes before I needed to take it off. But yeah, I don't, now that's for VR, whereas the Apple Vision Pro would do AR.
No,
so
the Pro, the visor is like a fake. It's not transparent. It's fake transparent.
that's what they're showing in the
no. It has a camera that photographs what's the inside and places it on the screen on the outside.
Interesting.
It's got like a 3D. It's got like a 3-dimensional. It's got like multi-layer 3D display to fake like 3D from different angles. Okay. It's not transparent in that way. No.
So they lied. They're advertising.
The idea is that you can see. The idea is that you can see to the outside because of the camera, and then people can see your reaction because it's got camera on the inside. But then they can completely shut it off, right? Like by not transmitting. So, yeah.
Well, basically, being able to work in VR like that comes down to two things. One, resolution, so that you can look at it without straining your eyes. And then the other thing too is headset comfort. How long can you keep it on your face? But as far as the software for using virtual desktops and all, not only is that already there, you don't even have to buy anything if you're using Windows virtual reality, Windows mixed reality. You can go right into the regular house and start pulling up windows.
I like the idea of augmenting the stuff, right, using essentially AR. I wonder what, I haven't experienced AR enough to really know if that would be any better, but I can assume that would be better for long term if you wanted
much better
an environment around you.
Well, Microsoft's, what is that one that Microsoft's got? The true AR. I think they were like, John couldn't even get one, and he was working on the project, right?
Don't know. There was who was it? It was I'm trying to remember. Jerry Ellsworth. She did a Tilt 5. Yeah, she's been working on an AR gaming platform. So for those that don't know, Jerry Ellsworth is a maker and has been for a very long time doing hardware hacking and software and all sorts. And she was doing her own thing, and then went and worked with Valve in their R&D department. And she came up with this AR concept. HoloLens, yeah, that's crap. And anyway, I'll bring this up on stream actually, just so that people can see what I'm talking about. This was it, Tilt 5. It is. You can grab it if you want to. But actually, this is a game. This is a gaming platform where you use the headsets and it uses a ultra reflective surface and micro what are they called, micro projectors, directed micro projectors in the headset, so that it can it sees your viewpoint exactly from your eyes, and you get the focal distance effect and everything. Basically, it's like it's in front of you, so you get essentially like a volumetric display in essence.
You can get a similar effect, not with a headset, but there are some games that you can use with your tablet or your phone. You give it a flat surface and it will build it in AR, and you can still see through your camera the rest of the room, and it looks like the stuff is running around on your coffee table or in the middle of your floor. But this would be much better.
Let's see, what's the next question then?
The next question is, what's the next question? Okay, I think, Randall, did you already take down the question that we just had? Okay, cool. Confused me a moment there. If Block uses provider under the hood, is Block not at a disadvantage considering RiverPod exists?
No. So Block itself,
no, not at all.
Hang on. The Block pan itself does not use provider. The Block pan is independent of provider. There's widgets that extend Block, call it Flutter Block, that let you use, and they use provider under the hood to be able to access the blocks. That's it. There's a difference between those two things. Architecturally,
yeah, I was also going to say, even if it did, the entire approach, the entire approach that is like Redux is so different that I think anybody who is accustomed to that approach is definitely not going to consider it a disadvantage at all. So,
all right.
We got that one? All right. What are the cons of having all repositories as singletons instead of putting an instance of them in provider for global use? Now, in my thinking, if we put one instance in provider for global use, is that not already a singleton?
No, I think putting an instance of them in a provider for global use. Oh no, he's just saying no. He just means not global scope. He means just global use in terms of global use over your hierarchy, your UI hierarchy. So what are the cons? What are the cons of having all repositories?
For a second though, when you declare the provider, that is in global scope.
No, that you're talking about Riverpod provider. That's not what he's talking about here. Provider is in provide them down the tree. Anyway, what I'm assuming this, I'm reading into it obviously a bit more, but what are the cons of having all the repositories singletons instead of putting them in having an instance of them in the tree, basically? So that which way would you go? Do you want to have like a class with singletons and just access them as statics? Like, so let's say you had a repository called posts repository, right? You could do post repository dot instance dot blah, like get post or something anywhere in your app in any function anywhere because it's a singleton. Or do you use the context and pass over an instance that's passed down the tree, getting that it's a particular instance and handing it off to whatever functional system you want to use it in? And the answer is the second one always. The problem is you're building out, so the dependencies are not coming down and into your class, and that means it's really hard. Well, it's difficult to test. If you do need to use that kind of global scope, then you can do it, but then you need like a dependency injection system, which essentially means you're not using a singleton instance, you're actually doing a lookup. So you have a singleton of your dependency injection framework, and then you can then override it depending on use case, which again just gets even more complicated. And again, it's not visible. It's always nice to know that this thing directly links to this thing, and especially for static analysis. It keeps it simple. If you try and do that kind of lookup, then at runtime, then you're doing dynamic access essentially, right? So at runtime, you're changing those things that are in memory at that time, not necessarily having an instance of that thing that you're looking for available at that time. So it's not until the code runs that it actually breaks. Whereas if you pass in your dependencies or whatever, like your repository down the tree, and you're passing it in, then you're saying, I have this, right? I have a direct access to this. So I know there's
I can add to this in that singletons have the inherent problem not during the normal program execution, but as soon as you get into testing, you're going to have the problem of how do I replace my real singleton with something else, but just for the purposes of this test. So if you're going to use singletons, use a locator like getIt, or of course my preferred is Riverpod for that. But at least use something like getIt, where at least you can then override that this name refers to what object as a singleton. You use something like that. Otherwise, your testing is going to be horrible. And I know none of you do testing, so I don't know who I'm talking to here. But if you decide to ever do testing, you will discover singletons are like, man, I hate that. Just try testing something that uses Firebase auth.instance. Try to test something that uses that. Impossible.
So yeah, in essence, it's always good to this is the nature of just object-oriented programming with interfaces, right? Essentially, you're passing in here. I need something that has these methods, has this interface. Now use it. Anyway, I think let's move on to the next question. We could talk about this for ages.
All righty, let me see here. Please explain the code generation with JSON serialization. This is a good beginner one. Please explain the scenario when the expected JSON key is not included in the API response, and getting a null value instead of a value, and how to set a default value.
Sorry. So
now I know how to do this manually.
Is not including the API response and getting a null value instead of a value. That's because you said it can be nullable. So null is the default when it's not there. However, you can also do @JSON key, the annotation on the field, and it has a parameter called default value, and that's how you tell it default.
Yeah, and well, the second one is good because regarding the first one, it doesn't matter whether you set it to nullable or not. It matters whether or not they paid the data entry person enough on the other side. Because I am not kidding. I worked on a project where we had a bunch of database fields and I was told to do X, Y, Z, and I did it. And the database field existed. The person who built the database field put it there, and no data entry people put anything in it at all. And so every time I tried to run, the app crashed, and they're like, why is the app crashing? Well, I figured it out and went back to the manager, and I was saying, because you didn't pay somebody enough money to fill in all the fields.
There's also an aspect to this, which is you can also set the default in the constructor, and JSON serializable will be clever enough to know to see what that default value is, but it has to be an optional then in the constructor, right? Not required. But if that default is specified, it will use that default value if they feel the key doesn't exist in the API response, for example. Hopefully that helps.
Randall, anything on this?
I think part of it is that you might have a local ID that's necessary for stuff this side of the wire, but the wire doesn't actually send over a unique identity as a key for you to use. So we might have to introduce synthetic keys locally to be able to track operations like, CRUD operations on a particular element. You have to have IDs for that. So if the API is just giving us 47 cities information about cities, it might just do it without any kind of ID. And so we have to have a synthetic key on our side.
It is really, really annoying when you have a structured model and then the response from the server doesn't really filter into that really very well. In that case, there is that same JSON key annotation can be used to override a particular field's way of encoding to or from JSON, and then you can make a little static function that does that, or a JSON converter, extend JSON converter, and it will do the changes for you.
Add a field that adds a UID, for example, would be an easy way to do that. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Ship it. Next.
Moving on. Any idea how to view an ISAR database outside of the mobile app? We will receive a copy of the database from the app via support feedback form.
Oh, so you actually want to hang a minute. And then you have to view an ISAR database outside of the mobile app. So hang a minute. You're not just saying for debugging. What you're saying is for support. Why the hell are you sending an ISAR database for support? That's right.
I'm not installing that app. You're not getting all my data just because something blew up.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, they fill out the feedback form and they know that they're sending. That's one thing. Also, you say ISAR database. This is a database for the apps, so it might just be what they got locally. But I honestly don't understand why you would want to send all that data.
I would serialize it. Send a JSON payload of some kind.
Also, I would never release that app in Europe. Limit it to America, where there are no prosecutable privacy laws.
No, you can still do that with GDPR. Just you have to do it right. But anyway, I do see what you're saying. Like there isn't necessarily a viewer. I don't know what's in the actually repo around that. There's no reason why you couldn't make a standalone viewer. I was going to show you this. This is so ISAR has a database inspector which sits outside the application. So this is part of the standard sort of toolset that comes with ISAR. I think ISAR takes advantage of the new Dev Tools Inspector tabs that you can customize now as well. I may be mistaken on that one, but yeah. I see what you're saying though, but if you want to transmit a database and read it standalone, it it is a custom database format, and this is what you get from using it, right? You're getting all the performance and a bunch of other things, but then you need tooling around it. I would say convert it and send it in a different format, which is basically what's been said. So if that would solve your problem. To debug what might have happened with the app, you'd be better off. Well, I mean, if you're in that situation, I think you probably got worse logging already. Like, you shouldn't need to transmit the database to run the app in debug on your local machine in exactly the same scenario, unless it is really a crazy bug. So I think about the structure and architecture of your app in the first place to get to that position where you're trying to debug it that way.
More tests.
More tests, yeah.
You're missing in testing that would even suggest that you need to do this from your client's perspective.
I mean, there's a ton of things. I don't need to go through them all, but yeah, I was gonna say you can create a standalone app to view it, and that would probably be one way. You can also make it so that your application itself has a parameter like a Dart defines to actually indicate that maybe it should load the database from a different location on the disk. So that way you could like stick it. You can make like a startup script which actually loads it in and copies over to the virtual SD card using the standard copy protocols like ADB. What's it called? ADB copy? I can't remember now. ADB, ADB CP. Is it pull, push, ADB push? Anyway, you can just have it copy it over and then boot the app up and say start from this location, right? But the thing is, I'd say what you need to be thinking about is probably better logging. So what I would do in your situation around sort of debugging your issues. No, I think you're looking at Isar the wrong way here. I would probably be having all the events in my app, logging what happens within the app, what the journey was. That information gets stored in Isar, and then that information gets serialized out and sent as part of the debug. So like then you get like here's all the actions the user performed, the last 100 things the user did before the error occurred. And then normally from that you can go, oh well, they did this and this, I'm going to go repeat that. Oh, there's the bug, right? Like if you really want to do it, like, or just look at it and go, oh well, that shouldn't be in that state, there's the problem, right? Most bugs can be found like that. But yeah, if you need to like do something special, like get them to send you a form, I wouldn't put it on like the standard form. That would be a direct reach out to the customer, asking them to sort of sign away anything private that might be in there and get them to send it to you via email or something. Or, I don't know, press a certain button in the app, whatever it might be. Right, moving on, I guess. Yeah. You're muted, Scott. Oh, there you are, you're back.
No, I know. We've got the dog coming in, so. All right. In RiverPod, what is the role of the consumer stateful widget? The other two already do so much. Well, I know there's the consumer, but or are they referring to the two that
no,
are not?
It's a stateful widget that's also consumes the reference.
Yeah,
the widget
it's got the consumer built in.
It's a merge of both of them, right?
Yeah.
It gives you both state and gives you a ref.
Yeah.
And so
you use the state normally. You can just set state. It's totally normal. It's just that you can now get access to the things in RiverPod that you normally can't get access to from a normal stateful widget.
Right.
It does everything a normal stateful widget does and more.
It's adding an extra layer.
Yeah. The cool thing is that ref is available inside init state because it's part of state. So you can use the ref in init state to grab existing values and use that to pre-populate your initialized variable. So it's nice.
But there is a caveat.
What?
Post-frame callback. You know how
many
times I've been smacked?
Updated value. Only because you can get an immediate value.
For initializing. I have been smacked trying to use them in init state sometimes because the tree was building while it tried to work with it. And it's not every time, but it's been enough that I've got post-frame callbacks scattered around a lot of places.
Sure.
All right. Cool.
Anyway,
just on that last one. Yeah, So he came up saying it was standalone app, and using RealmDB in our current iOS app, RealmDB as external viewer, switch to Flutter, and next cross-platform app we're sending logs to. Yeah, if you reach out to Simon, who worked on Isar, I believe there's a way of already viewing them standalone. I just don't know what it is off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure he's been debugging and doing things with that to be able to view it. He'll probably just give you a command you can just run. So yeah, reach out to the author. All right. I guess what's the next question? On that stateful stateless widget side of things, just briefly, you don't have to use stateful and stateless widget. They're just convenience, right? Like you can make your own elements, you can customize things. I think you need to, if you're not
but
if you're not familiar with the three trees, go look up the three trees, the render tree, the element tree, and the widget tree. And there's lots of talks around this and how it works.
What I'm noticing, though, we got 3 different experience levels all simultaneously existing here. The 3 levels, also called the 3-layer cake, is a very beginner thing. Whereas I think the question about consumer stateful widget is a little higher up, more like low intermediate. And Simon, what you just said about writing your own stuff. If you're asking a question about consumer stateful widget, ignore what Simon said about writing your own stuff until you understand it a whole lot better.
No, it's not. I'm not relating to that question. I'm just saying in general, people. The question was, why do I have to use this when I can just use this thing over here? And it's like, well, they're not the same thing. In fact, they're different. Well, I'm going to post. I'm going to just bring up this resource that I think people are not aware of. There's a page on the Flutter site called Inside Flutter, and this goes through the inner workings of Flutter and how it works, basically from the ground up. Like a lot of detail in this page, so it's a recommended read for sure. And there's also the architectural overview as well, which, if those that don't know of how it works, these are great bits of content. I'll pop the 2 links in the chat for anyone that wants to do it. The other one that we always recommend is we came out actually. It was us and Marco Glassberg came up with this kind of phrasing. Marcelo, that's it. Sorry, it's been a while. Constraints go down, sizes go up, parent suspicion. This is like the layout rule, right? That's how it works. Mm-hmm. And this is a great, again, more great content. So check out all the content on the site because it really is quite good. Right. I guess we'll carry on with the questions.
This next question, I'm a little bit confused by. Can't we develop apps more declaratively with Flutter, like in Haskell? Considering app performance, that's not feasible. A couple of things that really have me scratching my head here. Flutter was the whole reason that things like Jetpack Compose and Swift UI were created, was to try to be more declarative like Flutter. So
I mean, the UI is Flutter, but the entire app. It's more like functional programming, I think. I'm really into this. So
people have been wanting that.
There is other things, and depending on what you're doing, it can affect performance. I mean, the whole reason state exists in the first place is that it acts like a cache, essentially, right, for your inputs and your outputs to your processing, the basic premises of programming. So when it comes down to performance, I mean, if you had everything functional, you treat the entire app to display something as one big function, essentially, then you're going to be rerunning a lot of things. You're not going to be caching a lot of things. But that doesn't mean you can't take advantage of functional programming and the declarative UI. So, in short, yes, you can. Just do it.
I think my code was just insulted by Frey. Smart ass.
So it's interesting because there is so I've seen it too many times where people do this. It's actually not knowing that post-frame callback or schedule microtask exist as functions or features within the framework. A lot of time I see people doing this thing where they do future await future dot delayed 50 milliseconds or 100 milliseconds just randomly, like this is how I'm going to solve my problem. And the reason they're doing that is because they need to wait for the current frame to finish rendering so that they can then access like the context from a widget that they built or something else. Don't do that. You've got no guarantee that 100 milliseconds is going to happen in that amount of time. Also, why the hell are you delaying the user by 100 milliseconds or the interface or anything? Like, let it be one thing, then the next thing as soon as it's ready. So
and that's what post-frame callback means. After the frame is rendered, now do this callback.
But again, it's like people don't know about it, right? So I did a package. It's still up after. It's called after layout, after_layout, and it literally just adds a little on after layout to your state class. You add a mix in, and that's it. It just registers a callback and runs that function. It's like 5 lines of code. Like it's a really. But people are always asking about it. So where necessary, you can use post frame callback, no problem, and that's the correct solution. The same as schedule microtask is another one that people don't take advantage of. Go to schedule microtask first before post frame callback, I'd say, and don't write persistent callbacks on. Be careful. Just be careful. I've seen that also fail on people where, oh, I'm just going to run this code on every frame from here to forever whilst the session's running.
So basically putting something like that in the build, or
there's a add persistent callback inside the framework on the same place we do add post frame callback. People run that, they get their callback on the next frame, but then on the next frame it'll call it back again. On the next frame it'll call it. It's persistent. That's the nature.
It's a persistent. Oh god! At that point, just stick it in the build method. Run a set state in an infinite loop. No, all right, not quite that bad. Will macros kill stateful widgets and stateless widgets?
No. The two things don't have any relation to each other in my eyes.
Will Flutter kill Android?
Will macros replace multiplication?
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, there's nothing runtime about macros, right? The macros are, from my understanding, and I may be wrong, but the static metaprogramming is about build time. It's about running code during build time that lets you essentially generate code and customize your code base.
Yeah.
In a consistent way. So you don't have to. It's that kind of notion of generating the code, still generate code on the fly, using the advantage of the fact that the engine's running. It has cache. It has all the state that it needs. At the moment, when you run Build Runner, you're running a completely separate. What actually happens, if people don't know, Build Runner creates a Dart script in Dart tool, in the Dart tool directory, and you can actually then debug that and actually see what's happening with your own code generators if you want to. Like, it's all in there, but it generates that, then it runs it. That then runs it completely without any previous state because it's not running all the time. So that means that each time you run Build Runner, it has to gather a lot of state, and that's why it takes a lot longer. And you see that count of how many tasks it's running go up to like ridiculous numbers, and it churns quite a bit, and a lot of that is just because of the nature of the way it's working as just a separate app that you're just running to generate some code, which means each time you run it, you're starting a separate process, you're starting a separate thing. It's going to start all over again. So coming back to this, the meta programming, the idea is that it's running in memory, it's running as part of the Dart VM. So I say VM, so it's old school. It's not a virtual machine. It's just a runtime environment. So this is just like where the garbage collector sits, right? Anyway, so it sits in that environment, and the idea is that when you do a hot reload and you do a rebuild, it will run the macro code generator functions that we just looked at earlier, and then that will then output code into the builder, and that's what's consumed by the engine that gets built into. Can we have something like at state on a widget? No, because a widget and state are two separate things. I mean, I guess you could cogen stuff. I mean, like, here's the thing, like, you could do all sorts of things with cogen. Depends on what you're doing, but they're not the same thing.
And it would ultimately probably just translate into the already existing, very thoroughly debugged and extended stateful widgets. They're not going to get rid of that ever. That's in the language now until Flutter 7 or whatever, right?
To be clear, a widget, and I keep saying this, a widget is configuration. It's immutable. It cannot change at runtime. If you have any fields on a widget that are not final, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And a stateful widget does not have a state. A stateful widget is stateless. It is the state. Okay, a stateful widget has a state. The state is stateful.
Yeah.
Remember,
I think
the flex of the flexible determines.
So I will mention.
By the way, I'm making a note here. Get Jessica on the show.
Okay, I will mention here that when you when you look at your stateful widget, if you actually look at like the class stateful widget, in fact, we can look at it in a minute. But when you control click and go through to it, you'll see it builds an element. Just like every other widget, the element is the missing bit of the puzzle for understanding the difference between a widget and its state, right? The widget is just the configuration that gets rebuilt all the time, but the state gets persisted attached to the element, and that element has the rest of the tree attached to it. That is the thing that persists it. That is the state itself is the thing that holds the variables that's persisted. It's not the persistence itself. That's the element, and that's always been the case. A stateless widget has an element and it has persisted state in that sense, right? But it doesn't have app state, right? Anyway.
Just to bring this back to macros again. So the point of macros is to eliminate 90% of what we're doing with Build Runner by taking the functionality of what Build Runner is doing and moving it into the CFE, into the common front end, so that the analyzer has access to it and the code gen has access to it. But it'll be done during the front end phase rather than being done as a side process that generates files that then have to be sucked back into those things.
And because it's running with the existing state of the runtime environment, it already knows what this class is. It doesn't have to go past that class and load that stuff up and whatever it needs to do. It's all in memory. So it runs should run a lot quicker. Right.
Yeah. Most of what you see with code gen now, including Riverpod code gen, all these block code gen stuff that we've got, JSON serialization, all this stuff that we're doing in code gen now is almost always going to become transparent, and you won't be running Build Runner hardly ever again.
Can't wait.
No offense to the folks behind Build Runner.
No, thank God that it's there. Otherwise, we'd be typing a lot more code. We'd be losing.
I was using a speech-to-text program called Serenade for coding in Flutter, and there was a perfect one. I would just click down in the terminal, and I'd say "Run Build Runner."
Yeah,
it does the whole thing.
I mean, here's the thing: I have an icon to my IDE. I add an icon to my IDE that runs the Build Runner build command because it's something that you run that often, right? So.
You kids haven't had it. Yeah, you kids just say yeah. We can't go Scott.
Sorry, but a callback to no pun intended. A callback to the question about JSON serializable. When you're doing all that, if you haven't done a lot of it yet, when you're using JSON serializable, you will be running the Build Runner command so often. I strongly suggest putting it. If you're on Windows, in your clipboard history and hitting Windows TV and doing it that way.
Build Runner actually has a watch command that will persist and watch, but it's nothing you can run all the time. It's been had that since day one. It's just no one ever uses it. I was going to say that I'm trying to find it here, but there's tools around source generation, the old set of tools. And when you actually see the way that they work, it just basically they make text, right? And then that text has to be sort of parsed and go through the whole AST system and everything else. And by convention, it's just not a great way to do it, right? No, it made sense in the day one when it was for Dart 1, because in Dart 1's nature and the way it actually worked to JS, it would pass it to JS anyway, right? But now the whole Dart system's moved on. This is the next sort of conventional thing that needs to change, and it's moved way past the limitations of what Build Runner was in the first place.
And just a meta note, we're at the top of the hour. We've got 9 questions still in the queue. I think I'm going to cut us off after another maybe 10, 15 minutes. So get your questions in right now.
Yeah, maybe
right
not
now.
even,
Start
because
typing
I'm going to
right
have to get going in just a few minutes. I never get to see the coding.
now.
Maybe
Well,
we'll start with the
whose
coding
fault
next week.
is that?
If
I have
anyone's
this thing called a life.
Yeah,
if
too
anyone's
bad.
interested in
We gave those up.
if anyone's interested in building custom source gen and so on and so forth, there's a little link to an example. Anyway,
Oh.
right, next question.
Onward through the fog.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on Apple announcing the allowance of third-party app stores? Love it. Finally.
I'm also going to laugh out loud because I think it's. I mean, they say that, but it doesn't mean that that app store doesn't have to work through Apple's system.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which actually still means
you
that
know
Apple
what
has a
this
monopoly.
is, really. It's Apple's lawyers trying to get ahead of that lawsuit that happened when Google allowed Spotify to use an external provider.
If you think about the entire architecture of app deployment, the complexity that you've had to go through in releasing an app to the Apple Store, for them to like just go, oh, it's open to third parties, it's not going to be to any third party. You're going to have to pass a whole bunch of things. Even then, there's going to be hooks and integration. It's probably just going to be a layer on top so they can tick a box that says, okay, we allow third-party app stores. I highly doubt it's down to the lowest level necessary to really say Apple are not involved in the connection between this app, these app installations and Apple, right? Apple are always going to be in that picture.
Well, it's the signing. You can't produce an app without having it signed.
That's my point. Yeah. They either have they kind of go underneath that system of signing and then open it up and say, oh, the app store, the third party app stores do whatever they want with signing. Not going to happen. But let's say that would be one option, or they then farm off their code signing system to the third party stores. In which case, there's still a dependency on the monopoly of Apple and what they charge those third party stores to access that feature. Do you know what I mean?
And Apple is known already for doing malicious compliance, as some of you may have seen in the last couple of days, that they're going to start charging half a euro to install a free app past 1 million downloads. So not a problem for the small people.
What are you talking? I haven't seen this. Whatever it is you're talking about.
It came out in the last 2 days. I've seen headlines: malicious compliance. So Apple, to satisfy the EU, to be able to allow some sort of thing or another, they're saying, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to shift to a new pricing model. Well, this is to get around some of the revenue loss that they're going to get because some stuff can be done outside the stores. They responded by saying, well, if you've got a free app and you're going to get all your money from like Spotify kind of stuff, then after the millionth download, it's half a euro for every download after that. So that's how they're getting around it.
It's interesting because this isn't like a new model. What was that thing that was it Unity did as well recently when they're trying to like?
Yeah, Unity got brought up a bunch of times. Yeah.
We'll move on from this because we're not here to like.
Yeah, we're not here to. Yeah, Apple is doing its thing. Yes,
but big companies be big companies.
Yep, exactly.
I don't blame them. They're a beast of their own. Right, what's next?
All right. Okay, who's driving here? I have a custom trained YOLO of 8 instance segmentation AI model. How to use this in Flutter for predicting the. Pradeep, what are you doing?
Is this TensorFlow?
These are not Flutter questions at all.
Is this TensorFlow or is this Gemini or is this Vertex? I don't understand what.
He's got. Hang on.
He needs an API call. Period.
That's what the answer. That's yeah. Hang on. We're saying here like wherever your model is running, either they providing an API service that your app can connect to. Probably not a good idea to do that anyway. What you need to do is build an API. So you can use Dart's. There's plenty of examples around this, but if you want to use Dart to build your API, there's a package called Shelf, and lots of examples of how to use that to build like an API surface. That then, when you deploy that with Docker, there's a bunch of stuff around that online. You'll find there's also, in fact, we've also got Victor in the chat, I think, who does Server Pod. There's also Server Pod. I nearly forgot about that. but there's lots of options out there to doing server-side work. And what you essentially want to do is put a gateway, it's just an API, HB API, in front of your model, so that you make a request saying, okay, given this input or whatever the prediction is on the front end, whatever some text message they type or whatever the input is, goes off to the API. You can then restrict that API if necessary, so you don't get lots of people hitting the API, like rate limit it. And then on the back end, it can call out to wherever either you self-host a model, or you've got some what's it called? There's tons of AI hosting services out there. Yeah, get the result back, and then you send it back down to the app, and then the app displays it. So the Flutter bit is just the app front end, which is just how do you make an API request with an app. There's plenty of stuff around that. What you're actually looking for is building an app, building an API, and calling it to access the model.
Okay. Again, same
answer.
Same thing. You're asking how to get Flutter to do things with outside programs. The answer is always an API. You don't take the other program and put it into Flutter. So, all right. Using RealmDB in our current iOS app, RealmDB has an external viewer.
This wasn't a question. This is just an answer to the thing we had.
Randall!
Spatial cross the queue in front of it. We're sending logs plus it. And just I don't know what is coming in.
I highlight the ones that are highlighted, and that just got shown and then not de-highlighted. That's all. We're good.
Does Isar load the whole database to memory, or is it lazy loading? One property of my collection has a JSON field that can be big. Should I create a new table just for that field to try to save memory?
Okay, so let me just tell you, the thing you're missing is what is underneath Isar. That is the storage mechanism that Isar uses, which is LMDB. And LMDB is one of my favorite topics, so you picked a good one. I will share some topical information on it, and I will bring it up on stream. So here's the link that I'm actually just going to bring up stream. Lightning Memory Mapped Database, or LMDB. It's been around for 12 years now, quite some time. The big thing here is more about the technical description of how it works. Basically, I kind of want to go through this, but basically, in short, the nature of it is that it loads, it maps. This is not the same as using your memory. It maps the database file into the process memory space. And in doing so, it doesn't necessarily consume the whole thing, because it's only when those pages of the database are accessed that they actually are made resident, and they can also then be cached out by the operating system. So it only has to use what's necessary. And there's a whole reason why this is really good, and it's all explained in these technical points. But things like copy on write is a memory technique that's used by the operating systems, which ensures, as I said, it ensures data integrity, but it also means that you can have like multiple threads all in the database at once and never get contention. Like, it is super powerful. It's one of the reasons why Isar is so powerful is this. And just to be clear, it doesn't mention it, I think probably up above, but these kind of databases went out of fashion when we reached the memory limit. That was, as I think it's about it up here, but yeah, when you had 32-bit, it was 4 gigabytes. A lot of databases get above 4 gigabytes when they get bigger, and having a database memory mapped no longer works, right? But now we have 64-bit processors and 48-bit address spaces. You can get like 128 terabyte database size. You're never going to reach this like stupid size for any application, definitely not mobile. So these become a non-issue. Same as the 4 gigabyte. You're never going to get anything that big on mobile either. But anyway, yeah, memory.
I can have ChatGPT generate one.
I won't go into it, but the all of the stuff in this article, the technical stuff, I highly suggest reading. If you do use Isar, it's really good information to understand. But in short, to answer your question, around this, it doesn't matter if you make a new table or field. It's part of the database. The entire database is mapped into memory, and it will be accessed where necessary, and the memory will be paged in now as necessary. So this means that you shouldn't care about how big your database is. It doesn't matter to you. like what amount of data that you store in there. For the fact is that put it this way, if your mobile phone has 20 gigabytes of RAM or something stupid, and you only ever use 5, you're wasting 15 gigabytes of memory not doing anything all the time, right? Memory should be full. At the end of the day, memory should be full, right? That's how you have to think about it, right?
Don't tell Lauren I'm constantly getting on her case about leaving 20 apps running on her phone.
No, but the point here is operating systems have moved a long way since the early days, and the way that programs work has moved a long way. Like the operating system, especially in mobiles, in mobile case, will shut down apps that are no longer being used in the background. They'll still have that in the recent apps, and as soon as you tap on them, they'll restart from scratch. They'll reload up and have to reload their state and everything else. And you should be programming for that use case in mobile. But the point here is that you shouldn't have to track memory uses like that, and any memory that's not being used is wasted, right? Because it's just sitting idle doing nothing. When it could be used as a cache for a multitude of things that you access very frequently.
Okay.
Right.
Onward through the fog. Do I get to drive this time? Eduardo, not able to debug code in RiverPod providers. Are you having this issue, or maybe how can you get around it?
No.
Or how can you deal with it?
Don't put bugs in, and you don't have to debug.
I wonder
how many times I'll be sitting on Zoom with Simon thinking he's not putting any bugs in, and then I'll suddenly hear him say, "I'm an idiot." Not me, say about himself.
Yeah.
I think I would also mention that in general, obviously people can debug these Eduardo. So this is an issue on your particular use case. What you might be experiencing though is a asynchronous issue. So you might be having some problems there that you need to put breakpoints in that are following whatever your async awaiting or referring to. But I mean that when you're dealing with the time domain along with just the standard flow of logic, it can get a bit more complicated. So try again.
It is tricky to really understand async in general, and in particular the ways that it nuances activities in RiverPod. And I would not put it past most people that they do find difficulties. We see this in the RiverPod Discord a lot. But the key thing is to work in small enough chunks and write tests so that you can drive these things to see what it's actually doing and responding. Add a lot of print. Okay, I add print until it works. That's my debugging strategy. Figure out when it's rebuilding, when it's hitting methods, coordinate that with the similar prints in your widgets. So when it's consuming this, it triggers these 3 things. Also use provider observer, which is really handy. You can plug in and see every rebuild of every provider in your system in a nice logged format that way. So there are plenty of tools. You just got to use the tools. And yes, it does take a little bit of more knowledge than just simply setting a breakpoint.
And speaking of tools, see, this is another case where with comments, you will have some people say that you should never do comments and that the code should be self-explanatory. And some people say never do print statements. Then other people will tell you, especially in Unity, have 1 comment per line of code, which is terrifying. And that's like using print statements all the time. I think personally, the truth is in the middle on both.
Yeah.
You use the debugger and you use print statements. Sorry, Simon. Yes, I still use print statements. You're outvoted 2-1.
No, I think there's an adequate use for those kind of things like logging, especially when you're dealing with situations that occur repeatedly over a small period of time. It's really hard to debug them in real time for sure. But you shouldn't lose sight of using a debugger, because as soon as you put a breakpoint in, that's it. You can go look at the state of your entire application. You can go look at any variable, anything, and go, this is how the state is. How do we get into that state? And you can start debugging it and understanding, where did I get to get to here, right? And what is the bug in my application?
But the problem with that is that async is really tough to debug because you've got stuff in flight that also is still trying to trigger now while you're in the debugger holding it up.
There's a package. I think a lot of people don't use this package. There's a package called stack_trace. It's by the Dart team. It lets you analyze your stack trace, but equally it has a thing in there called chain. If you use chain.capture around your application, it will actually solve a lot of those async bugs. It actually chains them together. So you can actually see in one stack trace all of the async gaps and across the async gaps when they occur. So it can be a lot easier to debug things. So well worth checking out. Briefly, just want to jump onto another question that was unhighlighted, but I don't know who was chatting about it, but it's this one on sometime about network images fail to load. Why? They fail to load, obviously you've got a bad network, right? But equally, the problem really is one of, to be clear, this I've seen this before, so I want to be talking about this point. If you use network image, it tries to download the image, it fails, it shows the error. That's it. That fundamentally is it. It doesn't retry. So it can be that you went to connect, the network signal dropped out, a packet loss happened on the initial connection handshake, it failed the handshake, you got back, error, couldn't do SSL handshake or something, error, something stupid, and that's it. The image fails to load, and you get your red X or something. And most people don't know that this package exists by the Flutter team, Flutter_image, and it literally has one. I think there's one thing in it, which is network image with retry. And that's the solution that most people don't realize exists. You do this instead of image.network, you use an image widget with network image retry, and guess what it does? It retries. In fact, you can customize the strategy in which it retries, and it does exponential back off for standard sort of stuff over a period of time. But if you want to, you can change that. You can change your timeouts. You get all that kind of extension.
How old this is. When was the last time we had the new keyword?
What is the example showing the new keyword? Was it? Yes. I'm actually kind of curious.
I'm not saying the packages. I'm not saying the widget is, but it was originally written, I guess, that example with a new keyword.
Do you know what's really scary is I remember using this all the way back 6 years ago.
Wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
But this has been around for ages, and you should be using it. There's also a really cool package just called Retry. So this I highly recommend this package as well by the Dart team. By Googler. It's not officially supported, but Retry for Dart. And literally, it's a singular function retry that does the kind of exponential backoff stuff that you kind of defaults to, but you can change it, and it will just retry this future if it fails, if it errors, which is going to be really helpful because, situations occur like this, timeout 5 seconds. So it will retry each time, and it will only retry if it's a socket or timeout exception. And so you could do your own sort of API retry logic just like that. Really, really simple. And you can customize the retry options. But yeah, these are two packages that a lot of people don't know about and they don't use as often as they should.
Now, I know it was in a different context, Simon, but you mentioned it's been ages. Speaking of which, we have more new Flutter developers coming up who are like 12 and 13 and 14. I think the youngest we had a long time ago was 14, but I think they're like 19 now, right? And so I'm just curious, do we have anybody under 18 here? Because we really do try to put some not 1800
mentally, yes, maybe.
No, okay, no, and that's the thing. If you go to the bar, I don't mean if you're under Cuervo 1800, but,
which I have been.
No, I mean we've had a lot of young developers. We try to encourage them. We try to encourage new people. Unfortunately, sometimes there's a line between what is a Flutter question and what isn't, and we are a Flutter show. But it's always good to encourage. Okay,
let's go next.
Moving on.
Get through all the questions before Scott has to leave, so I don't have to do Scott's job.
Scott's already got to leave. All right. In Android, we have Logcat. I have nightmares about that. And we can see logs on killed apps. Do we have something like that for iOS?
Xcode can see that.
Xcode has a log at the
Log
bottom.
Log button on Xcode.
So yeah, when you run, you've got like the panel, run panel, you've got the log window at the bottom. You've also got, so also for not running, sorry, that's for a running app. For the not running app, you go to it's the window menu, organizer and devices, device and organizer or something like that.
Xcode, devices, or simulators, depending where you're running
devices,
it at.
simulators, isn't it?
And then they have you choose it and get a log button.
And there's an open log button that lets you view the log of the device, but it is going to be like the log cat is going to be full of garbage from all sorts of things.
Everything.
And you need to filter it. There's a save button in there, and you can actually you can save out the logs.
You can use.
I'm allergic to Mac, so I can't answer this.
Yep. Yeah. It's fine. We have Macs.
All right.
We can go.
And Jessica, I wasn't kidding about the show. Be careful what you wish for. All right. Is there a way of adding custom HTML tags while you're building web?
Element does it.
I did it last week. Go look at the coding we did. Was last week we did that, wasn't it? We did like an iframe.
Yeah, but there is an iframe element already.
No, it could be any element you like.
Right.
It's just HTML. I mean, you
could say element Fred, for example.
Yeah.
Generate a Fred element. Yeah. Yep.
Just look at last week's coding.
Yep.
And you'll find it.
Alrighty.
We did that one already. Yes.
Jose Perez, have you tried React Native? I tried to evangelize my team to use Flutter, but it didn't work. If you're going to evangelize people who are using React Native about Flutter, there are two things I start with. Number one, React Native is the idea so good that Flutter stole it. Mm-hmm. And that's where the paradigm came from. But the other thing is that the two big advantages, actually, I start with three things. The three big advantages are two big advantages. Good God. First one is that it is not interpreted code. Flutter is a binary executable machine code. And the other advantage is that we are not limited to begging the operating system for widgets, saying, please give me this, please give me that. And there have been times in the past when Apple has discontinued certain things here and there, and it has crippled apps. It really has. Whereas with Flutter, you don't have that problem. All you do is ask for a canvas and you draw whatever you want. So other points?
You own the pixels.
So I think have you tried to evangelize? I've tried to evangelize a team to use Flutter, but it didn't work. Are you trying to say like, okay, I'm still not quite sure what the question is, because have you tried Flutter React Native? Yeah, a long time ago. There you go. That's the answer to your question. But you said talk about evangelizing Flutter to your team and it didn't work. Are you asking also how should you evangelize to your team to make it work? Because I can give you an answer on that point as well, and that is pick a feature of your current product or whatever you're working on and rewrite it in Flutter and then write up that journey and show how fast or how complicated it was to do and then do a presentation on, look, I did this in my time, my spare time, and it took me this long, and I didn't have to, it wasn't difficult to learn. Here are the pros and cons. I see them. Now you've evangelized, right? But just going, please use Flutter is not enough, right?
This used to be the main thing that a lot of people had to do when Flutter first started, was what, add to app. They you basically would take a Flutter activity and drop it into and replace an activity from an Android app, and you did it piecemeal so that the app would end up being part Android and part Flutter, but the user would never know. And then they just replaced piece after piece until it was all a Flutter app.
It is really complicated to do that. I do not recommend it.
It used to be the only thing we had.
It sounds scary.
So I mean, at the end of the day, for those that don't know, just on those kind of along those points, Flutter is just a view on Android. It sits inside the activity. It renders to Vulkan, OpenGL, whatever the harbor is, and it's really fast at doing that. But that's it. It's just a view. You can put that anywhere in your Android app. You can. It matters nothing to the system, and that's the thing. It's built
What's
on
the
top
equivalent
of
in iOS?
it's built on top. I'm trying to say it's built on top of the operating system. It doesn't do GPS. It doesn't manage hardware. It doesn't do all this. It doesn't manage apps. It's not an operating system. It is a UI toolkit predominantly, and it has a language to go with it. Now, what's nice is that language can be used for a lot of other things. It's not just for the UI toolkit. So that means that you're doing, since you have direct access to the operating system, they call system calls, but since you have direct access to the system, you can do things like network calls and file operations and everything else straight from your compiled code on the platform. That also brings with it a bunch of other benefits, such as speed, performance, blah 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 blah. Anyway, so these are all things you can evangelize about, and you can do that by just reading up a Flutter. But the truth is, no one can be sold on another system just by telling them. They have to experience it. And to get them to experience it is the thing that you're trying to do. And to do that, you offer up and say, look, let's just try this out for a period of time and see how it is. And then everyone can get the feedback. And if the team like doing it, then boom, you continue. If they don't, then you don't. But try. And if you don't try, well, then you're not going to know.
I'm going to skip out here in a second, but one point on that, Simon and I have a friend who shall remain nameless, and the company he worked with, which is a big, big, big company, shall remain nameless, but they were trying to build a scrolling list, and someone sold the managers on the idea of using Unity. You know who I mean. So they fought this for like, what, Simon, 8 weeks? Something obscene like that. And finally, our buddy got sick and tired of it. And he was the Android lead for the company. Goes in his office, sits down, blows this thing out in Flutter, walks into a meeting, drops it on the table. He says, here, I did it in 2 hours. He did not win any friends with the people who made the decision to spend millions of dollars on Unity and all that payroll for 2 months of people, and he outperformed them in 2 hours with Flutter.
Yeah.
So
again, it's about choosing the right tool for the right job. I'm not going to say Flutter's good for everything. I'm not going to say Dart's good for everything. But for the mobile space and for all the things it's good at in terms of UI toolkit, yes, it's good. I would prefer to use it over everything else.
And again, even then, though, like in Android, there are a number of things that going straight Android for are going to be better. Stacy Davino, who's a big Android person, and I sat down and had this conversation. I've mentioned it several times. And to hear Stacy say it before I could, she said that for most apps, they're simple and straightforward enough that there's no reason to not use Flutter. You're better off because you get iOS along with it. But every once in a while, you need to go native.
I'll give an example here. Running stuff in the background, doing a bunch of things that involves close work with the framework. Well, you need to work in that language. So the way you do that with Flutter is you make yourself a little plugin, or you do some stuff in the Android in the Android folder, or the application, the platform specific directories, Android, iOS, whatever, and you do that code, because that's not part of Flutter. These are two separate things. And I think just to say I'm going to go build a Flutter doesn't mean you get all this stuff for free. And people go off and do packgoo and use packages, but now you're depending on third-party code. You don't know how it works. You then may have to debug that. Now you need to do this. You need to do that. So having just for 8% of apps, which is just displaying stuff, having a caching layer, having a synchronization layer, and fetching that from disk and network and all that just works inside Flutter, no problem.
Yep.
You take advantage of the platform plugins for the various things you want to build on top of that, basically.
So I was enjoying this, but I just realized something. Our friend in Korea said they were going to bed, but actually they're still here, and the next 2 questions are theirs. So that's probably what they're sitting up waiting for.
Okay. Well, we'll answer in just a second. I just want to just quickly pick this one up because it was on the thing we're just talking about. There are cases where Flutter uses native use like WHRN uses, I don't know what WHRN.
Google Maps.
Oh, when? When you sorry, I was thinking those initials were saying like when using Google Maps. Yeah.
Is this still true?
Yeah, but interesting enough, those views are textures in Flutter because the native view is rendered to the GPU and then it's all composed in the GPU. Wonderful. Perfect.
Okay. I got to run.
All right.
So,
get your legs moving.
You all be good. I'm half an hour past my bedtime. No.
We're going to get into these next questions.
Yep. I'm going to run away so that somebody else can get to their bedtime.
Yep. We only got a few more questions anyway. So, yes. You got that.
Bring it up.
Yeah, I did. Okay, so what are the differences between Flutter render tree and Web's render tree? Why can't they be compatible with each other?
They are. No, I'm being facetious. So if you run Flutter on Web, they're the same, right? It's an in-memory thing. One persists inside JavaScript inside the browser, or inside WASM in the future in the browser, and the other one is persisted in a format that's in memory in your RAM on whatever platform you're on. The same difference in this essence. But what I think you're trying to get is, why does Flutter have to render to a canvas and to do all this kind of stuff for its own rendering? And not just use the web side of things. Now you can, for those that don't know, when you build Flutter, in fact, there's pages on the flutter.dev website, you can specify the rendering engine, and you can specify, I want to use the HTML renderer, which is the DOM system, or I want to use Canvas. And you've got the option of choosing which one you want to use. Believe it or not, each one of those, they did some performance benchmarks. One is better off on desktop, the other one is better off on mobile. I can't remember which way around it is. And if you do a normal Flutter build, it actually builds both, and then it will run the right one based on what platform you're on. Anyway, whether that's changed or not recently, I don't know. It's been a while. But the Danielle would be the person to answer this, as she's not normally here. She's not here today. But the point here is, generally speaking, the document object model that's in a browser is not a declarative UI system. It is based on state, very much so, and the entire rendering platform of the browser is more of a what's the best way? Stateful imperative hierarchical system. And in doing so, if you want to maintain any performance with your browser, you have to modify the tree. That means you have to try and persist as much of that DOM tree as possible. That again then has implications in how a declarative UI system works. So the Flutter has engaged the browser's DOM tree as best it can to get the most performance out of the browser, and that's what the HTML renderer does. So go check it out. I think if you build your app with HTML renderer, and you'll see it builds tags for each one of the widgets, and you have color box and all the rest of it. Some of the reasons why we have some of the widgets that we now have is to optimize for web. Things like, I remember when the very first version of Flutter Web came out, it was called what was it? Hummingbird. And when we had a widget, you would have a container with a background color. The default implementation would paint that in a canvas, which of course, painting pixels in canvas with instructions does not relate directly to having a div tag with a background color set on it. So the framework was adjusted to have a colored box, and basically saying that, okay, this thing knows it fills the rectangle with color, and it doesn't do this custom rendering thing anymore. And having a node, if you will, in your rendering tree that says this fills the background, then on web they can optimize that to actually do that with the browser and eking out more performance. And that's essentially what they did with the HTML renderer. Then they realized, oh, we can get even more performance if we go to Canvas and WASM and everything else and just do a DOM tree for accessibility. And we get what we get now, for the most part. I think it's very well performant. There's for the most part, it's as performant as all the other JS frameworks. They all do basically the exact same thing. They modify the DOM tree where required. The nice thing about the nice thing that Flutter does in terms of drawing to its canvas, is that it does provide a level of security and some other things to it that you may be beneficial to your web product. It's more about, I think, again, I mean, it's been said this, but it's more about building web apps than it is about building websites. Because a web app is something that humans using that doesn't matter. It takes a few more seconds to load because you have a good sort of code base to it underneath. Whereas a web, sort of a website, that is something that, you know, that is searchable on Google. There's a slim line of distinction between these two things, but something that's visible on the World Wide Web, as it were, that has to be machine readable, it has to be searchable, it has to be SEO. That means it has to really use the DOM tree effectively, and it has to be DOM delivered from the server side rendered. That's not how the Flutter frameworks in client side. So there's other complications to that. So in that system, I suggest you use Jasper. Jasper, again, Dart driven. I'll get the link for Jasper. It's Dart driven.
I'll get it. Keep talking. Keep talking. I'll get it.
You're going to get it. Okay, cool. So Jasper basically allows you to still use the same familiar things like provider and stateful and stateless widget, but they're called stateful component and stateless component, and it uses Dart, uses classes, everything else. However, it works in the browser and specifically works with HTML, the DOM tree, and everything else alongside that. So you are being more like the current JS frameworks and not rendering everything with. It means that you're not using Flutter's widget system; it's its own widget system. However, you still have the same declarative system. It's just separate to Flutter to be more optimized for web.
It's closer to a system, say, that you would write in JavaScript with, say, Vue or React. But instead of using JS as your primary tool, you're using Dart, and then the Dart to JS compiler is actually spitting out a payload. The advantage of that is you don't get the 1.5 megabyte Flutter. Before you can paint a first single byte, you've got to get this 1.5 meg stuff down. The Dart to JS payload is very, very, very small compared to that. And although there is a few libraries it has to download, but it's not too bad. The other advantage with Jasper, and a lot of work's been done on it over the last 2 or 3 months. We had them on the we actually come on the show, didn't we? We had the Jasper guy on the show, and we also did some work in Jasper on here. In the last 3 months, they've really gone a long ways forward in enabling it to be either server-side rendered. So basically, you publish static HTML files, and it has all the navigation, everything that you want, or you can publish just JavaScript. So you could have it on a no-brains hosting service that just publishes JavaScript and let it all run in the browser with a lot of interactivity. Or you can even do hybrid, where you have proxy objects on both sides, which is really, really amazing, amazing stuff. And it also can embed a Flutter widget if you don't mind paying the extra cost of the Flutter download time. And Jasper's really undervalued, underviewed at this point. I really think more people ought to seriously take a look at it. I think it's the best solution in this space so far.
We used it on the stream for building the Flutteristas conference website and a few other things. Anything. I mean, here's the thing, right? Anything you can do in, for example, in Android, you can still do with Flutter. Anything you do in iOS, you can still do with Flutter on that platform. And the same goes for web. Anything you can do inside the web, you can still do with Flutter, right? So if you've got what's the word? I don't know, other JavaScript frameworks and libraries, you can communicate with those. You can use the JS and JS util packages to interoperate with all these things. So Flutter and Dart just enhance the behavior and give you consistency. Something that is really limited on JavaScript-based frameworks. Right. Anyway,
let's move on. I think we covered that. Yeah, it's done. All right.
Done.
So here, the server pod does not support GET requests. Really? Maybe it doesn't.
I don't know. I have to be honest. And Victor was here in the chat earlier. I saw him at the beginning. I'm not sure if he's still here. The host. We'll have actually. I think we're going to be having Victor on the show. I don't know. We've lost track of things at the moment, but soon. Soon.
Yeah.
And you can ask him that question directly. But yeah, you can do post requests. There's no difference between a post and a GET request from a perspective of processing or anything else. Right, on the server side.
Except that you can bookmark a GET, but you can't bookmark a post.
True. But what I mean is from an API, from an app perspective.
Right. But if ServerPod doesn't support a GET, then you can't bookmark the entry point to a ServerPod API. But maybe you don't ever need to do that.
I can't see that not doing that. I don't get is the basis of it all.
This seems puzzling. Yeah.
Here's it, Sheree. Maybe if you're declaring a body, then it just defaults to post, because if you have a request body, then you need to be doing post. Right. So maybe look into some of the details there. Maybe there's some automatic thing taking place. I haven't looked into it recently.
Yes. The web is a weird place. Definitely a weird place. So let's do this one here. Hello team, wanted to know how I build a feature where images can be nested in a folder or stack like Instagram and WhatsApp if the user receives more than 2 images. Does this mean you want your Flutter app to have uploaded images and it shows like a folder?
Well, no, I think I'm not even sure what you mean. All right, maybe you can repost your question, because when you talk about Instagram, I think of just like grids of images, which you can just do with Flutter.
Right.
Grid view with a chart that's an image widget. If you want to stack something, you use a stack and you offset it by I know you do things like pixel amount or density independent pixel amount, but pixel amount or a fractional amount or whatever, and have like a stack of 4 things and a plus or whatever. You can do whatever you want in the UI. Maybe you can be more clear about what you're actually trying to achieve here. But yes, you can do all that.
This. Maybe he means like on WhatsApp. I don't use WhatsApp, so I don't even know the answer to this. There are people here who did not use WhatsApp, believe it or not.
I mean,
in order to reach me 11 different other systems, I don't want to have another way.
It's very. In fact, WhatsApp is heavily used in Europe.
I know. Here, I guess he's saying there's a preview of 4 images from a larger collection inside the chat. That's all just rendering and laying stuff out. I think we would need
let me read this original. How I can build a feature where images can be nested in a folder or a stack like Instagram. Well, that's it. You just do it. You put a table down with or a column with 2 rows, and in each cell you put an image widget. Sorry, maybe you need to go look at the layout stuff on flutter.dev. There's a whole there's some layout tutorials and guides for those kind of basic things.
Do all the Flutter code labs. Always do all the Flutter code labs and review the cookbook. There are so many great recipes in the cookbook that I hear people all the time ask, how do I do this? And I just go, I paste the link directly into the cookbook. Here's how you do it. Just at least read the titles. Don't read all the text. Just read the titles so you know what's already being given to you by the Flutter team, by the home office.
I'd say that there is an aspect of definitely make sure that when you load your images, you're loading them with a max width, so that you're not loading the entire original image and then displaying as a little teeny tiny thumbnail, because that's stupid. Don't do that.
Right. And our final question. I have a REST API. How can I handle the error like key thing? Empty data called null. It's not a correct way to do it. How can I think it says ... Does that mean there's actually a follow-up to this question? Oh, maybe not. No, there isn't. So I got to scroll down.
I'm so confused. You can't have an empty key. Oh, how can I handle an error like thing? Empty key on data. So in this case, you see that there's curly braces, which is an invalid JSON. Well, that's it. You don't handle it. You do JSON decode fails, and then you'll get an exception that I think it's a format exception. And that's it. You then say it's invalid. I mean,
yep.
I can't download this thing. Right, and then throw the error, capture it, send your error off to your backend system, so that then you know that this thing's occurred, that your API is broken, and then you can fix your API.
You call tech support on the API producers, and if that's just some guys down 3 cubicles away from you, then go stand at their desk until they fix it.
Yeah, the problem is it's yourself.
If you're doing the server side too, yes, we'll fix your JSON. Yes.
I have a REST API. Yeah, I mean, the thing is,
That's
you
broken.
can do,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, is you can do stream parsing, you can do your parsing, but you've got a broken JSON. It's not well formatted. There's no, if it's the same thing, if the formatting of a serialization is broken, you've got no guarantee on the data integrity. You don't know how it should be displayed. You could be displaying completely wrong to the user then, right? So you should just throw it away. It's invalid. I don't understand it. Goodbye.
Yep.
That's simple.
Right, right. Just erase the app from the user's device and send all his credit card information somewhere else. Yeah. Anyway, I think that was it. So let's pull that off the screen.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to bring something else up here. The default declaration of native views in Flutter is hybrid composition, which AFK embeds the native view in Flutter widget hierarchy. No, it doesn't. Never has. The hybrid composition is something entirely different about how it does compose it, but it never embeds in the same view hierarchy. In fact, it's a completely separate display. So the way that Android does it on a separate display is it essentially brings it over to a separate display, captures that, and there's a whole slew of things around it. But yeah, no, it doesn't embed it in the same view hierarchy as the Flutter widget.
Okay, we're done. Let's code.
Yes, let's take a 5-minute break for those people that have been hanging around for a while, and then put your code for those that joining us now. We're going to do some live coding, and I think we want to hear your suggestions. Otherwise, we're going to be doing our own.
We're both taking a 5-minute break on this, so we'll have some music while we're.
So I'll put up a little music and a whole screen, and then everyone can have a break. Go get yourself a cup of tea or whatever your preference is, and we'll be back soon. Let's see if I can find this button. Where's this button? There we go. And we'll be back shortly. Wrong button. That one. There we go.
Does that mean we all die for chairs? We all die for chairs, right? Isn't this musical chairs? I got mine.
Musical chairs, right? Right. The question is, what do we want to code up? What do we want to do? Do we get any suggestions?
Yeah. Just moments ago, what was it? I just saw it. I just replied to it. And Andrea Bitau suggested live coding of a monitor heartbeat, please, or basically anything weird with custom painter.
Okay, we can do that.
That could be fun. Yeah.
I've got a couple of layout things. I can't remember who asked me. I was trying to find the the Slack messages that were flowing around, but I completely lost them.
Yeah, that can be a problem with Slack. I've got a hard out at the. I have a hard out at the top of the hour. By the way, I've got a medical appointment happening here.
Oh, what? In 6 minutes?
No, in an hour and 6 minutes.
Okay, that's right.
But I'm warning you now, because that's going to be halfway through your.
Anyway, so.
It's going to be halfway through your live coding. I can already tell. You're already.
No.
It's going to take an hour and a half.
Keep it sweet today.
Keep it under an hour, then I can stay with it all the way to the end.
Let's see what I can get up here, and then I'm hoping I want to have a go with that static meta programming as well. So
yeah. Do you have any experience with it yet, though, or is it just going to be?
No. I have zero.
Oh, that would be exciting. Actually, that would be exciting.
So I want to give it a go. It does require.
This will see how much people have to struggle to get this to work.
Sort a few things out here. So right, I think we're good to go. I have a test project open, and we can just randomly throw some things in and see what happens. We'll do some layout things first, and then we'll do some custom paint, I guess, since that was the suggestion that we've got. Let's see. Let's get ourselves in a happy position here. Here we go.
I just got a notice from Amazon that a driver was trying to chat with me. I don't know what's hard about put the package on the front porch. I think that's what the instructions were.
He's like, but I can't find your house. I can't find your porch.
No, on my phone. I don't know if you can see it, but you can't. No. But there, the icon is right next to here where he says he is. So I could probably stick my head out the window and go, hey, put it on the porch.
Over here.
Yeah, toss it over here.
All right.
Anyway.
So let's do.
Yeah, and now I hear the front whistle. So there's a train whistle here. My cousin's into all sorts of trains, big and small, and so the front door has a sensor on it that says it does a train whistle, and it just went off. So obviously he found the front porch, or it wouldn't have triggered. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
see where we're at here.
Let's do something fun.
Okay. So what are we to do? Oh, back. It says. Hang on, let me try and get into it. I'm just trying to resize this. What are we saying we're going to do? Some layout. Let's do that. So a couple of people were talking about how to do some interesting behaviors with layout. So I figured we can briefly fiddle around with that idea before we go into something else. So let's try this out. So let's grab whatever I did last time as yeah, we'll just do it like a little. What was this? I don't know. I'll copy paste it and start from that. No. So I have to change over to the master branch in a minute to do that. But for the minute, this will be fun for what we're doing. Let's get rid of that. All right. All right. So basically, we're just saying here we're going to run app, an empty app with a home screen with a home widget, and then we'll do. All right, let's see if we can get that up and working. We'll do material here. So whilst this is building, okay, let's see what happens. Whilst that's doing that, let's just briefly mention what I want to do here. So someone was talking about how do you get a let's say a horizontal scrolling list with exactly a specific number of child elements. It's kind of a common thing, and I think it's hard to get it is kind of hard to get your head around it. And I want to show a couple of different approaches, a bad one and a good one.
Okay.
And try and talk briefly about the implications between the two, because I see the bad one used quite often by people. So I'll give you an example here. Let's say you want to have a horizontal scrolling list with exactly 3.5 like child widgets across the screen. How would you do that? I'm kind of curious. How would you do that?
How would I do 3 children across the screen?
3.5.
3.5.
So imagine you've got some vertical content, and you've got a horizontal list in the vertical content, and you want to have 3.5 showed, and you can scroll like maybe there's 10 items or something.
I see. So
you're guaranteeing your layout rule that you're trying to guarantee is that there's always 3.5. Doesn't matter what the screen size is, there's 3.5 visible.
I'd probably have to use a layout builder and get a width from there inside my row.
That's the way not to do it.
Oh, then tell me, kind sir. How should I be doing it? I will learn something once again today, as I do every week after week on this show. And to me, you have frozen. What's going on?
And that's what most people do. So I'll just set. The system doesn't like that.
Oh. You're freezing to me. I don't know if you're freezing
yeah, no,
to
it's
everybody.
It's my system's choking on the fact that Gradle wants to eat up probably a lot amount of memory or something. Here we go.
Stop doing torrents during the show. Don't do torrents during the show.
All right, it's not a Gradle.
Right. I know. Same thing.
Gradle is the same difference. Right. All right, so here we go. So we've got a white screen. That is our app running. Let's put a child list view, and we'll do this as a list view builder. Oops. Fingers. And we'll have the items being returned. Let's do a size box for a minute. Height 200, and inside that we'll put a placeholder. So we should get our, there you go. There's a lovely standard sort of layout. You have a list and a list of items or whatever, and we can even look a bit more exciting by having a I want to just I want to show something. I actually want to show you this. So this is kind of interesting, right? I want to do a edge and I want to do a padding where I don't repeat the top twice. So there's an equal amount going for every widget like this. So you can set your bottom to 0 and your top to 8. So therefore, the top is shared. You could also do this differently and have 4 on each. But then you have a problem that your top edge is going to be 4 short, right? So then in the way to solve that is to put padding on your actual list view. Let's say in this case we can now do vertical 8. Now that padding sits inside the scrolling content, not on the outside. Now you can see now though that now we've overridden it, we don't have our safe area, right? So it can suddenly get a lot more complicated than it needs to be. However, there is a nice way. There's also a way of doing the padding like you just had it originally, which is you can say edge insets, let's say .all 8. It doesn't really make much difference, but you can do this edge insets only bottom.
Alex, these all go into snippets that we gists that we post at the end of the show.
Yes, sorry, this all the code will be posted. So here's an interesting thing you can do. You can actually negate an edge insets from an edge insets. So in this case, I say I want 8 all round, but minus 8 off the bottom.
What? Oh yeah, you showed me this before. This is weird.
Yeah. But it's kind of one of those things that most people don't know you can do, which may read better than having a bunch of numbers, not knowing what it is. But the end result of this is there's one const instance, because both are const. There's one const instance that is compiled in that already has the math done on it. So it should evaluate it at least at compile time. If it doesn't, then still you got 2 consts. It's not a big deal. Right. Anyway, back to non-craziness here. Right. So so we want to have, let's say, the second item. So that we're just going to do a stupid thing here and say index is 2 return list view builder.
Math.padding. Like it.
And we want, what was the, it's direct, is it direct scroll directions? Scroll, I forget what the thing is, horizontal. It's axis dot horizontal, that's it. Sorry, one moment. I've got someone at the door.
Oh no. Is it my Amazon guy? Maybe he went to the wrong place. I don't know. And now we'll never know because Simon's already gone yet. And I have to still go look to see if there is a package at my front door. Oh, I should see in the Amazon app, right? Because it should show me a picture of the stuff that has been carefully placed at my front door. It still says out for delivery.
Hey, guess what? I think it was your Amazon guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it could be. Ah, that's where it went. He said, "Oh, I'll go over here then."
Delivered to the wrong side of the ocean. Anyway, right? Yeah.
No, there's a picture. Oh no, yeah. Oh, at the further, it's a spot I can't get to with my walker.
Yeah, sorry, the ocean's in the way, right?
It's just a little, no, just outside my front door, but I have.
Oh, right. I see what you're saying.
I have to get over a threshold and go to that spot. Great.
How's your hip doing, by the way? You're getting.
Oh, yeah, I actually comment on that a little bit during the thing. I'm 8 weeks out now, and I am walking with more weight every day on my right leg. I have stiff muscles sometimes, but no pain at all. So like when I'm just sitting here, there's no pain. I've been totally off my pain meds for at least 3 weeks. And my blood pressure is back to normal. So whatever I had chronically affecting me for 2 years while I had that low level pain from the previous damage has gone away. And so I am not taking prescription drugs at all right now, which is really amazing for somebody who's 62. So I'm pretty happy.
So,
So I hope to be seeing y'all at conferences coming up soon. Maybe the next 6 months or so, you'll start seeing me physically show up at places.
So let me show some people here some stuff. Right. So we see what we're seeing here. So now what we've done is that we now have index 1 as a horizontal list. and there it is there, going to the edge of the screen.
Right.
And
where's the 3.5?
Yeah, that's it. So I set the clip direction to none. I actually don't want to do that. I wanted to show something here. So you can see here, it's actually getting clipped to the edges. That's because we've got this padding. Now we want the padding around it, but we want the scrolling. Whoops, he says.
Get out of your app.
Yeah. Start that again. I'll reload. We want to scroll to the edge, and we also want to keep our padding. So the way you actually do that, this is the correct way of doing this for those people that don't know, is you put padding on your list view of, in this case, it would be a symmetric padding. And this would be a horizontal padding of 8. And then the symmetric padding on the outside of vertical. This is splitting the responsibility of the vertical padding to be a margin on the outside, as it were. And now you can see, now we don't get clipped to the edges, and we can and it scrolls to the very edges of the content, right? Now the top and bottom are actually slightly off, and that is because the lines are being drawn on the exact 50-50 split. I don't think there's an override on placeholder for this. So when you actually when you paint a line, just for those that don't know, yeah, there's no override on this, but when you actually paint a line, a stroke on a line, you can actually give it the stroke. I'm trying to remember where it is now. There's a, basically you can say if you want the stroke on the inside or outside of the line and adjust for it appropriately, the stroke width.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It doesn't do that, which is fine. So the easiest way I can fix that right now, just from a nicety, I don't recommend this, but you can do clip none. There you go. It won't clip the edges of the list view. Anyway, we get the right behavior. But anyway, this still doesn't get us. I want, let's say, 4.5 of these widgets going across the screen, right? So 3.5 then. I don't know, whatever. 3.5.
I remember.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's sort that out, and then we can move on to the next example. So let's tidy this up a bit. Right.
Mike says stroke align.
Yes, it's stroke align, isn't it? Somewhere, I forget where it is. But anyway,
Mike, help us out. Come on the show. Help us.
So anyway, so really simple way of doing this is I put the size box in here to give us a constriction on the height because we're in the scrolling content, which is unbounded. So we need some bounds, especially for our horizontal scrolling content. However, this can be an aspect ratio, and this is the magical thing. This means it's happening at layout time. So if we were to do 1.0, we would have our lovely square. And then if we could do something like at 3.5 divided by 1, I can't remember which round it is, we get that. Now, if we have our inner widget, wrap that with an aspect ratio, you now have a ratio of 2 aspect ratios that you can play with. And in this case, if this was, I'm just simplifying, if it's square, guess what?
Yeah.
It's always going to be 3.5 without any measurements.
Wow.
This means that the layout and the measurement of your widgets is happening during the layout phase.
Yeah.
And you don't rebuild on every, you're not rebuilding all your widgets on the build, which is what would happen if you're doing it the bad way. This is the good way, right? Of using 2 aspect ratios to achieve your goal, right? Now, I will mention that you have to put padding on the inside, because if you put padding on the outside, then your aspect ratio is not going to be in relationship with the one on the outside, right? So
you're also stuck with a particular aspect ratio of the things on the inner side. You can jimmy them a bit so that you can get an arbitrary, say 2-to-1 aspect ratio of the inner one, but then you're going to do 2 to 3.5 in the other.
But that's why you should be able to do that ratio on the out. So if we say like let's say 1.5. I'm trying to remember which way around it is. Let's do. I forget what it is.
Backwards.
Yeah, I forget which way it is. I'm probably getting it right, am I right? Or whatever. No, I'm not even going to go there right now.
You want 1 over 1.5 on the other one.
Oh, 1 over 1.5.
And then 3.5 over 1.5. So the 1.5 changes the same way. But
yes.
Now it's taller. So
yes,
you could
that's the way to do it.
right.
I give up, but yes.
So if you made both of those 0.5, then you would get like, you make that and make it 0.75. There you go. Now you got smaller. So yeah, now this is a 2-to-1 box, basically, or close to 2-to-1.
So yeah, as long as the relationships are always in relation to each other,
right.
then the layout is always going to be in the relationship you expect, right? Anyway, without any fixed dimensions being specified, that means that even on a slightly wider screen, you're still going to get 3.5, right?
Yeah.
So if you want, again, if you want 3, then you could just do 3, and you're always going to be guaranteed to have 3.
Right.
As I said, the padding is what's actually throwing this off at the moment. Just to say, there's your exact 3. So if you want to deal with the padding, then you want to do that a different way. You put the padding on the inside. So you would put the padding on the first widget. Anyway. So anyway, the point here is you can do that with aspect ratio. You can also do custom render objects and all sorts of other fun things, right? The way not to do it, which we're going to do if this is index, we're just like hacking this in with example, right? So, but let's say the one after this. A lot of people do this. They do a layout builder. Avoid layout builder where possible, please. Like we talk about unnecessary builds. This is the epitome of unnecessary builds for a lot of things. So in this case, we say return a list view. I'm going to grab the one from above because I'm not a maniac. And then what am I going to do here? Well, I can get the constraints of what's on the outside. So I can say, if I want 3.5, then my child width is going to be the maximum width of what was on the outside divided by 3.5. Have I got that right? Sounds about right. And then on the inside, I can put my size box and then put the width of my child width, right? Yeah, can't be const. Right. What have I done? Yes, because I don't have a height. So this is the next thing. Let's wrap this with. It's going to fail its constraints right now repeatedly, but we'll. There you go. So now I'm fixing myself, boxing myself in. It's always going to be 200. Doesn't matter what the screen size is, right? And it's always going to be 3.5, which also means that these children don't maintain any aspect ratio. They're going to stretch around, right? So then I have to calculate if I want that aspect, if I want some sort of aspect ratio, well, I might as well I can calculate the aspect ratio with the width and height and so on to calculate the right height. But then why not use an aspect ratio, right? So yeah, it's that kind of thing of use the right tool for the right job. And the side effect of doing this bottom one is that now whenever layout takes place, it's rebuilding the contents of the layout builder. This is very particularly bad on web and desktop when you resize a window. And of course, it's performing layout on every pixel change of that resize, which is causing build to take place and for it to rebuild the entire subtree that's inside here.
Yes. Bad.
So yeah, layout builder has a role, and most people use it to get to the constraints, which can be helpful in its place. But for the most of the time, if you're doing it for layout, then do a custom layout. Do an actual custom single child layout or custom multi-child layout where it's actually needed, and therefore you're doing the layout in the right place. Yeah, at pinch aspect ratio, the 2 aspect ratio idea here gets you out of a lot of. It's implicit, it's there, it's declarative. Boom, done. Okay, all right, so that was one thing. What was the next thing?
You're going to post that as a gist?
I can post that as a gist right now. How's that?
Yeah, because I figure the next thing is going to be a different thing.
A little comment in here, bad. Just so people know, bad.
Yep.
Bad way.
Bad to the bone.
Good way. There you go.
Yes.
That is going up on Gists right now. I'll post the link in the chat. Did we get anyone post Gists today?
Did we what? Sorry, did
we get any Gist hashes being posted?
I don't know, not yet. I don't think.
No, I didn't see any.
No, no, nothing in the questions yet. Nobody has asked us to review their code. If you want to ask us to review your code, create a gist and post just the hash in the chat, and we can pick that up and run with it, because then we can drop that right into Dartpad, for example. So hopefully it's some code that runs in Dartpad. Actually, we can just add the gist thing back in front of it, right?
Say again?
We could just add the gist thing back in front of it once we get the URL.
Yeah, we just need the hash.
Yeah, you can post just the hash, because those are unique. All sorts of unique.
Sorry, I'm just getting everything together there.
So now I got email and a text message that says, yes, my package has been delivered to a place I can't quite reach. Wonderful.
And I better post it in the thing for all platforms.
Look,
here is the link to the gist.
Yep.
Of the code we just did. So yeah, you'll have a play around with it. Right. I guess next, let's do another one.
Yeah. What else?
What was I'm sure. What was the other one I want you to do? Well, how long we got? We got a little bit longer.
About 20 minutes or 30 minutes.
Let's get on with the one that was asked by the audience, and then we can get on to maybe trying out some of that master branch stuff.
It's going to take you all 30 minutes already anyway. I don't know if we can get to anybody else's thing if we're going to do that. What
was the question? I'm trying to find it.
I don't know. You're right. There was some question before, wasn't there?
Where can we see this code example? Okay, yeah, Alex, you've got that. It's linked. But all the code examples, Alex, are on my GIS. So just go to my homepage of GIS and you'll find them all, including also code examples that aren't from the show. So go crazy.
Consumer stateful widget, no. And grows. That's something we may be looking at.
Ryan was just clarifying the question earlier about the grouping image. For images, they should be grouped in a folder, like not show them as a long list. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're asking, Ryan. I mean, you could just do a stack and just with a well, I'll show you here. Look, here you go. Let's do it. Well,
you could do that,
yeah. So let's do. Let's imagine here's a list view. Here's your messages, right? And when it's the second message, we'll pretend it's something else, and we'll have our padding, and I don't know, a decorated box. Why not box decoration, and colors gray. Red, and what is red stuff? Oh, that's okay. Oh no, it's boring. I'll get right a minute. There you go. Because you can make that const. You can't make border radius circular const because it's a factory constructor. Right. I don't know. Horrible as that looks, we'll find out. And then inside that, we'll have a column my message text stack let's get rid of this.
Oh.
All right, let's run it, and hopefully it shouldn't take too long now because it's got everything cached. Right, yeah, so let's get rid of this. So this will display like a little kind of fake text message box, I guess. We can actually repeat that for this one. Why not? In fact, here's the answer to this: is move this whole thing out here and call it a message widget. I don't know.
Cool.
Right, and then our message widget can display the text. That's going to go in there, and it can also display a list of string images. That's optional. Obviously we're making up these images, but you can have an image model and all the rest of it, right? But it's good as a demo. And we're going to go around a list, and we're going to output what we expect. So let's just do this: edge inserts, blah blah blah, and message widget text. So if we now have a series of messages to display, let's just do a list of named records. We have string text, list string, our inputs basically, hard coding them. But this is fine for examples. And then we want, so text, hello world. Who wants to and images.
Messages is a list of records. Is that what you're doing there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who was asking this? Orion.
Yeah.
Good morning, Orion. And how are you?
It makes me want to go look up that Blade Runner article or quote that mentions Orion's shoulder now.
Great. Blah blah blah. And then if we actually I can extend this more. We'll self. Let's do this. Self false. So we'll do that to true. True.
Wow, this is getting complicated.
No, it's not. Shush. It's right. We're just modeling some data there, and then we want the length of that list as our length of widgets, and we're going to get that message from each one, and then we're going to present that. We can present the entire message to our widget, and we'll have even better. You can take this record out there, type it so we can reuse it and call it message model. This is how not to do models.
They should be real data classes so you can call real methods on them.
Yeah, definitely.
I get people seeing how cool a named record is, and then I go, but you're not actually creating a separate type, and you're not actually going to be able to put methods on it. Just everything that you can put, extend to have methods on everything is exactly that same shape, whether or not it's that same type dev. So you're missing a lot of things, but people still are going away into that weird territory. Records solve a bunch of interesting problems, but they're not the universal solution to all that. I think we're getting the inline classes coming up next, and I think that's going to be fun to work with. We could actually play with that on beta if you wanted to do that.
Sure. Hang on.
Because that's already stable in the beta, and I'm guessing Dart 3.3 or 3.4 is going to be pushed soon, and Flutter 3.19 or whatever the next number is. Can't imagine that's going to wait until summer. People ask me, when's Flutter Forward 2024? And I said, there's no plans that I can tell. Probably I/O is going to be the next Flutter-related event.
Okay. What we're doing, and self. So we can do something like
if self.
Cross-axis alignment and say if message.self, then cross-axis alignment left. This is just really dodgy, but this is it's not left, right, start and end. Oh my goodness me. This is do as an example. Right. So where were we? We're actually trying to write something and we've gone off the rails. Right, why is that? Oh, yeah. Okay, we're getting there. That's a bad background, but let's do a lighter shade. And that horrible red. Still darker grey, why not? Cool, that's a bit better. And then we'll stick some padding on the inside.
The app is in the direction of what I am asking. I want to see how these placeholders can be nested. Well, that's good.
Yeah, I haven't got there yet. Right.
What do you expect for free? You expect it to be done in 4 minutes for free?
So anyway, so
20 minutes.
So yeah, if we get the images, what we're saying is you just do stack and then positioned, right? And then your chart. In this case, we're going to use actually, well, why not use an image.network? Left top and for in. So you can actually do another neat trick here. So we want to extract out the image, but we also want an index. So the way you do that is you get the images and then you say dot indexed.
Yep. You have to say for E in that.
That's because it's not nullable.
You need a variable in there somewhere.
Yep, I'll get there. So you can say final index URL in.
Yep.
And then URL goes in here. And then our left is going to be, say, index times 10.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
Right. I really don't like this. I think it should just be images. It's not empty. And then instead of having that nullable, just have blank arrays.
Ever required by default.
I like that more. I hate null. Null bad. Right.
Yeah, you can do required with default empty. Yeah.
So let's have the second one have the images on it. So we need a list of test images. I used to have some. going to see if I can.
Oh, this is an interesting consequence, but I bet you're going to solve this by adding a gesture detector to each one of the images.
What? Why do we need
see the screen?
Yeah, hang on. Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Well, apparently there's a placeholder like generation website, which I just came across.
Yeah, image is something. Image holder.
Placeholder. Apparently.
Yeah, there's
a. How this works.
Free API somewhere. Where the hell was that? Sorry, where the heck was that? We don't want to get defunded here.
Oh well. Anyway, I found some URLs. So these are. I'm going to dig out some better images in just a second, but this will do just for a quick example.
Lorem Pixum.photos. Pixum.photos /
What do I do? Right. Yeah.
Yep, there we go. I knew there was an easy site. Lorem Pixum. I love the name. That is just so great.
And we don't have. Let's just put with Humpdays for a second. Is there like a demo site?
You want the name of that thing again? Lorem.pixum.
What I want to know is why this isn't displaying what I want to display. Okay, good. That's a good start. Right, Lorem Pixum.
Lorem.pixum /200/200, for example.
Okay, does it just give you some placeholders then?
Yep.
Okay, let's do it. Will it be different each time you call it then?
In theory. Pixum.photos. That's it. Not Lorem.pixum.
Yeah, but oh, wait a minute. Put your design image width and a URL, and you'll get a random image. Oh, because they're cached. So this is because Flutter caches them. So we need we need cache kill.
Oh, that's going to be tougher then. You'd probably just add question mark and unique ID.
Yep, that's what I've done.
Okay.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't need the CK. I'm just whatever. All right, so now we've got 4 random images in there.
Look at that. Look at that. Stacked.
How about that? So let's do.
And then you're going to add a gesture detector around each of those and be able to.
Why do we need gesture? Why do we need what? He wants to stack them
up.
That
was in the further comment that I was trying to read you. Yes, we want to be able to click to view.
Right. To just click. I don't know what's complicated about this, honestly. Yeah, look. Here, look. Open with gesture. Oops.
Gesture.
Gesture detector on tap.
Show the URL.
I mean, what do you want? What do we want to do? Like show the image larger?
Yeah.
I mean, we can do all sorts of things. Let's get this right first of all, because
pop up a dialogue that just says done.
Let me just figure out what I want to do here. This is different. I want this to be fractionally sized box. I want width factor of 0.7. This is a bunch of ways of doing this. And then I want this to be. You can do intrinsic height. I guess you can't. So we can calculate the height though. It just bugs me that I have to calculate. Oh well. Anyway, oops. I'll just calculate it. It's fine. So we know that if our width and height of our samples are 100, then it's going to be 100. Well, 10. Yeah, it'll be 10 times however many we've got. Image.length plus 100, right? Minus 1. No, almost right. I got padding somewhere else. Anyway. Oh, I added it, didn't I? Don't. There you go. Oops. Right. And we're saying that, when you tap it, you want it to go bigger, right? So you want to make like a image screen or something, right? And then we want this to fill the screen with maybe so you can use like the dialog stuff and do a scrim. It's probably just easier to do it like this. Colors black. We have like a black 38. Maybe it's too much. We'll find out. And then center image.network. Oops. Does anyone find this interesting, or is it boring? I don't know. Feel free to comment. So yeah, something like the screen, what I might do is make this private. And then we can have a static there's like a
you can do the whole router and just do it. Just do a show dialog. So much simpler.
Why not? I just want to show how to do something like this.
All right.
I'm here now. Take 2 seconds.
Okay. That's what you say all the time, though. It's not 2 seconds.
Oh, it is.
No, it's always faster than it would have been had I been doing it by myself, but it does sometimes take you time. Yes.
So
I don't recall you saying I'm an idiot yet. I'm waiting for that one. So for anybody that's playing along the home game with the bingo card, not yet filled in the square where Simon says I'm an idiot.
Right. And then, in fact, what we can do, no, we'll leave it. No. Yeah, we'll leave it like that for now. Right. So if we want to like show that, we can just have it when you tap on it, navigator.of context push image screen route for.
Wow.
So we actually want it. I mean,
you want the URL?
I mean, right? We don't want it to tap on each one, do you? Because they're stacked. That's not really viable, right? What we do want to do, though, is maybe show, I just realized, probably show them all, but with the top one as the first one that you see. And then you can like slide through them, I guess.
My impression was that being able to touch one of the four would just bring that one up.
Yeah, but
because it would stay in the background somewhere.
Right, but then you tapping on these little edges is not really.
Yeah, okay.
Like
whatever's easiest. Make the edges wider. Make it so your fat finger can still hit it.
I was gonna say, wouldn't it be better just to do this? Hang on.
Yeah.
This is super simple, right? We'll take the message images, fire them over. This becomes a list of string images.
And for those of you waiting for the 7th occurrence of the word "hang on," we just had that.
No, that's it. I've gone off you now. You're not my friend anymore.
Go ahead, disown me. See if I care.
You're gonna see if I care. Harsh. Right. Let's do images 0 here for a second, and then see where that takes us. Restart.
No, it's always fun to watch you code.
Tap.
It really is, actually.
Okay.
Look at that. Look at that. Except
so that's nice, and then we can go back. Obviously.
Back?
So that's the one at the very first one there, right?
Yeah.
I'm swiping back there, but you know. So that black. So the reason why we're going not being transparent the way we want is because there's actually a setting on material page route specifically, which is that it is opaque. Opaque, a set opaque here, and this is on
barrier,
purpose, right?
Like a barrier or something.
But here's what we can do: material page route builder. And inside page route builder, nice and simple. Here's how you solve it. Inside here, you return fade. I'm going to fade it in because why not? And then he says, I put the comma in the right place. Right. So we have a fade transition with that, and then on this, we can choose to not have it opaque. Right, so that should fade everything in. Hot restart, click. There you go. Now, obviously, maybe we can have it now so that when you click outside of the image, it goes back, right? Or we tap outside. So we can do that by wrapping our entire widget here with a gesture detector. Nice and simple. On tap, navigator of context pop. Tap on the outside, it goes back. That's nice. Now, if we get this even better, so now if we say wrap this in a list view, we can then have this just be a, I don't know. There's a few different ways of this. I'm not going to. We're done with that.
That's not making repeated fetches for the image, right? Isn't there some sort of level of caching for
it? Does. It caches in the background for you. It's automatically cached.
Right.
So
as you're using the same URL each time, it's going to keep working.
The URL is just used as the key.
Yeah.
So there's a global, for those that don't know, there's a global image cache built into Flutter, and you go implements least recently used up to 1,000 images, up to 100 megabytes. You can also adjust this and do whatever you want.
Right.
It's on the rendering is it rendering Flutter binding? I think no. I forget.
Sorry for
one
that.
of the bindings. You can go look. There's an image cache that you can override anyway.
Right.
If you don't know anything about the bindings, go look up Flutter widget binding. Is it Flutter? Oh, do you know what? I may even have that Flutter widget Flutter binding. Widgets Flutter binding. That's the class you want to go look up. This is the class that implements and brings all of the base services, all the bindings together. Things here like gesture, schedule, services, painting, semantics, rendering, and one of these has the image cache in it. And I forget which one. You can go look it up. Widgets Flutter binding. There you go. Right, where was I? Index. Let's actually make this a page view builder. What happens there? Let's have a look. Hey, look, I can swipe through them. How cool is that? Bosh. I can tap off. Yeah.
Nice.
Obviously, like we're limiting ourselves to 200 by 200, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
The reason. Yeah. So.
Oh, just go back and change your 200s to 500, but leave the 200 for the stack size.
Oh yeah, the stack's on 100 anyway, right? So I could change the URLs to
Yeah, that'll fetch new pictures too.
Oh
yeah, look at that. Oh, that is cute.
So one thing we probably want to do is put a where is it?
Size box on the
no page view. Come on, think, Simon. It's on the page controller. Sorry, where is it? Controller.
Click behavior? No.
Yeah, page controller. Yeah, that's what I want. Yeah, that's the part I want. So make this stateful because it's stateless at the moment.
To build your own page controller.
When you create something, you should clean it up. Especially if it's a controller.
Or use hooks. Hooks make you don't have to do that.
Yep, as we talked about earlier.
Yep. That's why callback.
I'm fine doing this. Right. Anyway, viewport fraction, this one's trying to get to. So we could do something like 0.8. And then now if I restart, we should get some new images. And then when I tap.
Oh, look at that. Oh, that's pretty.
So there's a hint of what's next to it. And if we could go like something like 90. And then on the inside, wrap this in a fractional padding. There's all sorts of let's just stick a padding in there for now. There you go. So
cool. You got like a whole app there. Ship it. Send it somewhere. Put it in the store.
Did that help? Did people find it interesting? I don't know.
Ryan was pretty happy so far. So
that's what he's getting.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Yep.
Right. Let's chuck it in Gist.
Yep.
And then we can see if we can try out some of this new code gen.
Just in time. No, I got 10 minutes, then I'm hard out. So
maybe we should call it here then.
Yep.
I think people wait. Anyone been ready to see this? Because if they have, we could give it a quick. See if we can give it a quick go. Otherwise,
why don't you play with it over the next week, and then you'll have more things to show.
That is an option.
Yep. Not that I'm suggesting anything from this part.
I want to see what people say. Otherwise, we'll.
Yep.
Oh yeah, maybe I should.
Well, there, Orion's following up here. Huge thanks. What a good Kickstarter. Now I can experiment from there. Yep.
You're most.
That's one of the things Simon is great at, is getting us kicked in the right direction.
I will kick anyone in the right direction.
Yes.
Right. What should we call this? Photo stack example. Message photo stack example.
Yep.
Chat.
I like it.
Message photo stack example.
If you were German, you could get 4 more nouns in there.
No, I couldn't. It wouldn't fit on the button. It'd be too long.
Yeah.
There you go. That's in the chat.
I say this only being partially German, so I can get away with German jokes about noun stacking.
Wow. I always remembered it was Russian and German have these. Whenever you try and do localization, the words are just so long.
Yeah.
They're just so long. It's just it's a nightmare for like trying to put things next to each other and actually have any usable space. It's like the simplest word in like English ends up being like this really long, like 20 character long text string or whatever, and you're like changing your layouts just for the specific locale. Anyway,
well, so we do this every week. We try to do it every week at pretty much the same time. We have a tradition now, because I force it, of shifting when daylight saving time hits for the U.S. So for those of you internationally, pay attention to that. but that shouldn't be for another few more weeks, so we should be okay. We will definitely announce it on the week before.
Yeah, there's always a week difference for me because we go
2 weeks.
2 weeks, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. And so we'll be back in 165 hours from now for next week's show to take your questions. Once again, I had to turn about 5 or 6 people away. Again, it's like if you come in past the cutoff, and I've never get the show done. So,
hey, Christian, there's some laws with really nice long names. For a minute, I thought you said there's like a law on really long names.
You must name this with something.
What country is it? Is it Norway or Sweden or something like that, where they've got a law on the names? There's like a list of names you have to name your kids. Like you can't name them whatever you want.
We could ask Bard. I'm sure Bard would know.
Yeah, I'll go on. You do that quickly. Yeah, no, okay. It was really surprising when I learned this, and I was like foreigners, expats or whatever that are like living in these places. They want to name their kids and things, and they're like, no, it's illegal. You can't do that. It's just like, wait, what? Like to me, it's like you name your kid whatever you want.
Okay. I asked Bard, is there a country with specifically permitted baby names? Yes, there are several countries. Oh my God. Denmark has a law on personal names with about 7,000. Iceland, you must submit your proposed names to the Icelandic Naming Committee. Portugal.
That just sounds like something a program.
Names. Okay. German, the first name must indicate the child's gender and shouldn't be an object's name or a last name.
Oh my God, they can do one.
New Zealand, there are restrictions against names that could be offensive, unreasonably long, or resemble official titles or ranks. Yeah, I'm going to call my son Doctor. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, that's Dr. Schwartz.
It is like that's the always the ongoing. Was it from Doctor Who, right? It's ongoing because what's my name, Doctor, right? And like just Doctor.
Yeah, right. That would be great. So there's your answer from Bard. Thank you, Bard, for
Denmark was one I'm thinking of
for the end of the show. Right. Cool.
All right. Right. They're doing it so you don't use stupid names. Sure, Joan, but also I get that. But then the law should be you can use whatever you want, but we have a purview on what we think is a stupid name or something, right?
Right.
I don't know. Whatever. You're welcome.
It's to rule out calling people by a number like they did with was that 7 in Charlie Brown? Somebody was named 7 for a while, wasn't it? Charlie Brown?
I don't know.
Anyway, doesn't matter.
Anyway, that's it. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll be here same time, same place next week. Thanks again.
Yep.
Hang on. Bye.
Dun, 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 dun.